All right. So, welcome everyone to Eris Talks. Every Monday and Wednesday, I sit down with someone I find super interesting and unique and highlight their story. And basically, I'm Aristocracy, spelt with an E. Some people gave me some criticism for it because they were trying to search with an A. I love learning, engaging with ideas, both based and crazy, but just with, the principle of charity. If you guys want to get some questions in for Dylan, and I know a lot of you guys have them, be sure to hop in my stream chat and I'll try my best to incorporate them. But yeah, today we have Dylan Burns, as we can all tell by your famous, beautiful, luscious locks, which I'm very
Oh,
jealous
thank
of.
you. Thank you very much.
I think that's like what everyone notices about you first, right? Number one,
It
it's rare
pops
that
out.
guys have long hair. And number
Mhm.
two, it's rare that it looks as healthy as yours does. So,
Yeah, I don't
apart,
even do anything special to it. I don't take no good care of it at all. Like I
no
just
way.
shampoo and no, I don't. Like I only started using conditioner like 3 months ago. No, actually only a month ago.
What? Hey,
Yeah.
that just makes me feel even worse. I work so hard for my hair. What the heck?
It's just natural. I got it from my father.
Do you think it's like your diet?
No.
No,
It
no,
is
it's
not.
not.
It's most certainly not my diet. It 100% can just only be genetics. There's no way my diet of Wingstop and corner store foods is what is making this
God
happen.
damn it. That's so
Unless there's
annoying.
something in the Wingstop sauce. I don't know.
I'm tempted to just like make this entire interview just about your hair, but I feel like that would drive everyone insane. But it would
I
entertain me. It would entertain
yeah.
me.
I should really go into like some hair product commercials or something.
You
I've thought
actually
about it.
should. I think that's a really great way to like monetize your channel. Like in my opinion. I mean,
Maybe I
not that
don't
you
know.
need the
Like
help.
it's not actually a bad idea. The idea of doing hair care products for the channel or doing commercials for that. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's gonna be one of those days I'm walking down the street and it's gonna be some like a big like hair care promoter down his luck. He's like kicking cans. It's like I can't find that model. Why are there no men with long hair? Then he sees me and he like chases after me. It's a little comedy skit. Yeah.
I can see it. For the few people who don't know who you are, this is Dylan Burns, well-known politics streamer and foreign policy advisor to various political candidates, I think. Dylan, do you want to kind of tell us a bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
Sure. Um, Besides the, of course, open allegations, open and shut question of arms smuggling, what I'm actually known for is I was a state director and deputy regional director for the Mike Gravel campaign. I managed the Maryland campaign. I was a advisor to Michaela Wilkes, her foreign policy advisor, when she was running for Congress against Steny Hoyer in the primary. I was an advisor to State Senator Jill Carter when she was running to replace Elijah Cummings' seat. I was the campaign manager for Patrick Wilhan, College Park's first openly gay mayor. We got a victory of about 70 something percent of the vote in a three-way race. I'm very proud of that. I worked in the Maryland General Assembly. I'm currently on a local environmental board, and actually tomorrow I'm going to be going to a tree and landscape board meeting, so I'm going to be start participating in that board as well. I also did some union stuff with SEIU 1199, which is a local healthcare union, and yeah, that's basically everything. People mostly
You
know me
don't
because
sound very accomplished. I don't know. I
I
feel like you've got to work harder.
a little bit, maybe a tiny bit more. Oh, and I also do this thing on Twitch a little bit.
How do you find time for everything? Because Twitch takes forever. Like it takes so much time. So
So
I don't know how you balance that.
currently my schedule is I'm going to school full time. I just turned 20, so I'm still going to school full time. I am streaming full time. This is how due to my housing situation having changed as of recent, which I'm sure we'll get into probably. I have to now, pay for this whole apartment by myself. So streaming is how I do that. This is how I house myself. So I have my streaming. I have my school full time. Then I'm also a financial director for a 2022 campaign. And I'm also a political consultant for 21st Century Democrats, which is a progressive political PAC. So all of that takes up a lot of time, and I'm also terrible with time management, which is not a great balance. But
I don't think you are. I think you
I
sound
don't
very
sleep a
good at
lot.
it, to be
It's
honest.
a lot of hard work, and I've even considered taking a semester off recently because it's just been like a unending wave.
Yeah, like I don't even understand. So are you struggling with sleep? That
Oh
seems
yeah,
to be the
oh
issue.
yeah. I'm a lot of times I've been like I'll sleep through classes a lot accidentally, and I'll just like wake up at 2 and go to bed at like 8 a.m. if I like get to bed then. Sometimes, or the other I would like sleep for like 3 hours, get up and just get back to work. Anytime I like wake up, immediately look at the clock. It's just like reflex now. It's not healthy. It's certainly not healthy, but
Well, as
I,
long as it doesn't affect your hair, I'm sure it's totally fine.
hey, sleep is extremely important for like the health of your hair and like the health of my
That's
skin.
true.
But I'm still 20, so I'm gonna give it a few more years before I start caring about that.
Yeah. Time's ticking, you know? Tom,
Exactly,
you're
exactly.
getting very old.
Gotta use my youth up now.
Yeah. Well, you've told me when it comes to this interview that no questions off the table.
Yep.
But if I
If
do
if
end
it
up,
if it if it is too far, I'll stop you and be like, hey, I don't really want to talk about that right now.
yeah, yeah, okay, cool. I know that sometimes it can be can feel a little awkward doing that. So yeah, that's totally fine. Um, and also, I just want to give a warning to anyone who's watching that we're going to be talking about challenging issues like sexual assault, harassment, abuse. So if that stuff can be upsetting for you, probably a good idea to tune out. All right. So I guess like in general, tell me, how did you get into streaming? Like, how did this all start?
So I was not a big Twitch guy growing up. I was actually a big YouTube guy. A lot of people don't know this, but I was actually a Minecraft YouTuber when I was younger.
Really?
Uh, if you look up a channel called CowPal, which is now it's information, so I don't care. You'll find me when I was like 12 with not recording the screen. I had a camera recording the screen, and the titles are misspelled. I After the first few videos, I was very embarrassed about how high my voice was because you hear your voice differently. And so in the
Mm-hmm.
last few videos, I fake lowered my voice. And so because when I grew up, I grew up actually like reacting to like Minecraft YouTubers and stuff like that. Streaming was something that was more recent. That's probably 2018, probably more 2019. But again, it was through YouTube that I got introduced to streamers like Stephen Bunnell, also known as Destiny. I know you interviewed them, and a few other
Mm-hmm.
streamers. Um, and through my political work, a few of those streamers wanted to have conversations with me, and I got an extremely positive reaction of being able to speak in
Yeah.
front of these larger crowds. Before I spoke at like the University of Maryland in front of what like YDSA, talking about Rojava, talking about Soleimani, but this was like a whole new like area, like in front of so many more people. And due to that positive reaction and me being able to do somewhat okay in front of a crowd, I thought, you know what, this could be a good avenue. This could be a good project, but this will be a side project, and eventually, I guess I did okay. So now it's a full time thing. So yeah, that's how I got
Yeah,
into
it worked
streaming,
out.
really.
So, like, wait, you said that you got this really positive reaction when you started talking about this stuff in online platforms. Were you kind of surprised by that?
A little bit. The thing is, obviously, I know that like me talking about foreign policy, and this is why I've diversified my content a lot more. I now do panel shows. We're now in the beta stages of doing a dating show for LGBT people,
I'm
actually.
really excited about that one, by the way.
We're thank you. I'm excited for it too. I of course do a lot more React content. I'm trying to play more video games, do stuff like that. But originally, the crux of my stuff was foreign policy, and obviously, foreign policy is a topic the vast majority of Americans don't really care about unless we're
Mhm.
like in an active war, like as in we're invading the country or country's invading us, something like that. And so, with that in mind, the idea that people were going to care at all was like a far off idea. I just thought maybe I could get one or two streamers to rethink about their foreign policy, but the audiences seemed to respond positively because I guess a lot of people would just like they'd say, "Oh, this thing happened in the news," and that would be the level of analysis that happens,
Yeah.
or it would be like a lot of people just having these vague general ideas of like, "Well, we need to kill the terrorists. Oh, we need to pull out of the Middle East," and that's basically all the analysis that would be done.
Yeah, there was no nuance in that conversation.
Zero, zero. If you ask Palestine, Israel, which I know this is like a big thing for you, like it was either like, yeah, well, Israel has a right to exist, or Israel did a horrible, and that's like the depth of the
Hmm.
conversation, or nobody would touch a period. I still don't touch Palestine and Israel on my stream because it's too toxic of a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I actually admire you for that, right? Like the fact that you recognize how nuanced and stuff like political stuff can be. You probably like just learned from the other situations that you've gotten into that yeah. It's way more than most people do, and I just wish people would be a little more responsible with what they said. So I think it's
I
cool that you do that.
I remember I did this AMA on the politics server, which um, I don't really interact with as much anymore because it's
Mm.
just some of it's just bad vibes. But I remember I did it a while ago, and somebody asked me a question about Iraq, and at the time, I didn't feel that I knew everything I possibly could know about Iraq, so I didn't want to
Yeah.
answer any questions about Iraq. So somebody asked me a question about Paul Bremer. Now, Paul Bremer is somebody who completely bastardized de-Baathification and the rebuilding of Iraq process. I find him not solely responsible, but in large part responsible for the failure of the rebuilding process after the Iraq War. But since I didn't since I didn't know everything about Iraq, I just said I didn't want to answer this, and people like thought it was like a gotcha because I
What the
didn't
heck?
feel comfortable answering the question. And what I
That's so
realized,
sad.
but then I would see anybody else talk about the Middle East, and it was like, oh, Paul Bremer, I don't know, seems like a bad dude, and that'd be the depths of the analysis, and I just stand there in shock as people just say whatever they want. I remember there was this one instance where this streamer known as Tree of Logic after the Soleimani strike, her analysis was, well, Iran can't do shit to us. And I'm just standing there like, well, if they can't do shit to us, then why is this even news? Ever heard of
Yeah.
the like the whole embassy situation? That was a whole thing in
Mhm.
1979. Ever heard of like the PMFs? Any of the? And I just realized that people don't do research. They just hear a thing and then repeat it, and that's it. And so
So,
after that, I felt a lot more comfortable talking foreign policy, really realizing how low the bar is. So not a great reason to get more comfortable about talking about it, but one of the reasons why I did.
you actually just touched on something that I really like about your content is that when you talk about current, I mean, you're a politics streamer, right? However,
Yep.
you talk about history so much, like you incorporate history into everything that you do. Even just now when you're talking about Iran, you mentioned that. So, like, what's your process for, studying history and how you incorporate that into your current political opinions?
So what I'll usually do is if there's something in the news, I'll do everything to learn about the players involved, try to like the current state of the nation, and through that, I'll usually branch out. So what, and this is actually how I recommend a lot of people do research. And so let's say there's something in the news. Let's say Myanmar, right? And so
Hmm.
let's say you're in Myanmar and you're like, okay, so there's this Aung San Suu Kyi person, and there's this military government that just overthrew her. Okay, well, you just learned about the military government, learned about Aung San Suu Kyi, but while doing that, you're like, Aung San Suu Kyi, okay, there was a democracy struggle. Oh, there was a struggle for democracy. Okay, let's learn about the struggle for democracy.
Yeah.
During that struggle of democracy, oh wait, there was this period before during the struggle of democracy where the military government and its oppression, okay, that's a whole other protest movement. There was a whole other reign of terror for the military. Okay, let's learn about that reign. Or wait a second, a lot of this stuff about Aung San Suu Kyi, she isn't just a fighter for democracy. There's this thing with the Rohingya Muslims. Okay, what's up with the Rohingya Muslim? Oh wait, the genocide. And by you branch out slowly. It's like I compare it a lot to a tree. You
Yeah, I was just
plant the
thinking that.
seed. You plant the seed that is a tree, and it sprouts out, and all these branches slowly start to form out with all these like tiny leaves, and every branch is like a different part of this issue. But when you look at originally, and that's why I feel like a lot of people have service level analysis, is they have the seed, which is
Mhm.
cool, but you need to actually nurture that and like dig deeper and like do the research.
But you can't nurture that without that, personality quality of being curious, right? And I think that that's probably what makes you so different than other creators is that, like, that curiosity is probably that thing that's really pushing you always to be questioning everything.
Yeah, there's a few things like push me towards it, right? A lot of my history pushes me to work very hard on politics, but when it comes to learning stuff online, I there's a few things that push me. Number one, I hate being wrong.
Mhm.
I hate the idea that I could possibly like be wrong, and the worst thing to be wrong about isn't like, oh well, you know what, looked at the issue the wrong way. That is fine. I'm fine having my mind changed for that, but I hate being wrong simply because I missed a piece of information, or I
Mhm.
didn't know this, or I didn't know that. And so I am spreading information that, even because if I was wrong in the other situation and I spread this information, people would still be learning something. Well, basically, I'd rather be wrong from a perspective like I just had the wrong way of looking at an issue than wrong
Mhm.
because I had a lack of information. Because
Mhm.
if I didn't have a lack of information, at least at the end of the day, I could know that I had the correct information and that I was spreading the correct information when it came on to like the basics. But if I
Yeah.
had the wrong information, then I could be spreading complete disinformation. Like, for example, um, let's say I perpetuated the lie that there was a meeting between Saddam Hussein's officials in Prague with certain other officials, right? If
Mhm.
I perpetuated that lie, then that could completely change somebody's perspective of the Iraq War. They could
Yeah.
think, oh, maybe Saddam Hussein was involved with 9/11. Because then, if that was, then there's a whole self defense principle that could be invoked when it comes to the Iraq War. There's something,
Yep.
a whole new element that could have been added. But then, and that could completely change my view and the view of all my viewers. But if I know that that's complete lies pushed by unconfirmed lies pushed by people like Cheney to try to get us more involved in the war, then I'm like, oh, okay, actually, this changes my perspective completely on the Iraq War.
It can destroy your credibility too, and trust
Yes.
in creators is so important, especially with the
Credibility on
kind of
Twitch.
yeah, I know. That's why I think it's really cool that you're holding yourself to this super high standard. It's I don't know. I wish other people would do it, and because when you're creating stuff online and you're trying to teach people, yeah, there's a lot of power that's in your hands, and a lot of people misuse it.
Yeah, I just I'd rather just not speak on something than speak on it and end up being wrong, because
Hmm.
there's an embarrassment and there is a sense of like failure anytime like somebody points out like, hey, we're wrong there. But at the end of the day, I want people to do that because I'd rather just be called out then than have like 20 videos up on my channel where I just said a lie or said something wrong.
Yeah. Were there any content creators that particularly inspired you? I think you mentioned
Content
Destiny.
content creators that inspired me. Not really when it comes to the foreign policy front. There's not a lot of people online talking foreign policy, so there's
Yeah.
nothing there. I would say that um, Destiny was 100% the creator that when I came onto this platform, he was the person that I actually actually, you know what? Let me get something quick.
Okay. Let's see.
I got secret Dylan lore. Give me a moment. I got.
I'm excited. Yeah, everyone in chat is just talking about how much they appreciate the nuance. It's cool. Like, it didn't seem like people actually liked that stuff. I wonder if there's a lot of creators that do want to be nuanced, but they felt like pressured by the fact that they thought it was unpopular. You know? That's why I think it's really cool that someone like Dylan's being successful. He's kind of found that balance with entertainment and also being really responsible with the knowledge that he puts out there. Sorry about the squeaking. It's my dog. It's in the Zelda emotes. He's lying. I'm in Dylan's. Oh, I for some reason I thought you were saying you're in Dylan's house. It's like Mr. Geek. That's a little weird.
I couldn't find it, but what I was trying to find is that I had an old Destiny hoodie that I used to have
Oh
from
shit.
when I was a big Destiny viewer, like in 2019, 2018.
That's cool. So what caused you to kind of move on? Because I'm guessing you don't watch him as much anymore. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, me and Destiny had a huge falling out.
What? No way. Did you
Yeah,
actually? Or are you trolling
yeah,
me?
yeah. What happened was like I found out that he actually played League of Legends, and I couldn't.
What a dick. Yeah.
I'll talk to someone like Mel who has some choice questions on what's going on in Xinjiang, but that's a bar
You
that's
don't
too
want to
far.
platform that,
I
right?
can't platform that. You can't responsibly platform LoL players. You can't. I'm sorry.
Um. Okay. So, um, what do you
But
think?
the thing is, I still watch his videos. I talk to Destiny a lot. It's
Yeah.
mostly just I'm just so busy now.
You
Where
just don't have the time.
in high school, I had more time, even if I was busy then. But I
Mm.
just had more time, so I just don't have the same amount of time to like watch content like that.
Well, it's crazy because now, you've gone from someone who watches content creators to being one of the main ones. So you've grown to be basically one of like the main figures in the Twitch politics community. If you had to guess,
That's a weird thing to hear.
is that, but it's true, right? Like, especially lately, you've really, really grown a lot. So what do you think, if you're just to be like super full of yourself, like right now, right?
Okay.
What do you think has attracted people like to your content?
I think one would be consistency. I work very, very hard to have a consistent schedule, and
Hmm.
taking a day off is like a thing that takes a lot. For example, I didn't take a day off until very recently yesterday, and that was only after I got like updates about my father's like chemo and like a
Oh,
bunch
wow.
of other stuff and like a huge workload. And I was like, okay, I'm taking today off. I'm sorry. I consistency is a big part of it. Like
Mm.
people knowing when to tune into your streams, super important. Hippy Dippy, I remember we had like a 5 month streak of just never missing a show. And it was every Friday. Like that
Yeah.
level of consistency was extremely difficult to keep. I mean, people remember like when I was homeless, I still got the Hippy Dippy Championship. I was homeless and doing the Hippy Dippy Championship at the same time.
That's when I
That
first heard about you. Like I remember thinking this. I don't know. This guy is insane. Like I. Sorry, that's so ableist to say, but this is like amazing that you could actually accomplish all of that stuff while going through something so personally, like crazy.
I've always dealt with trauma or like traumatic events by just working more. And so for me, that was a big thing. Someone tried to strangle me to death, and well, I'm sure we're getting into it later. But and I used the opportunity to just work really, really hard. That would be a second thing. I guess the third thing would be the foreign policy stuff. If there is a foreign policy viewer on Twitch who cares about foreign policy, this is really the only place you can go to get that content on a
Hmm.
consistent basis. I don't do as much foreign policy as I used to, but it's still the most out of all the other political streamers. So that
Yep.
would be I fill a niche that nobody else really fills. And I would say the last one is I try to have a pretty decent community. And oh, and you know what? Here's another one. There's not a lot of left wingers who go out of their way consistently to go talk to right wingers, and I do that a lot
Yeah.
on a consistent basis. I would say a good 80% of my like debates and conversations are with right wingers because my main priority isn't arguing or debating the left all the time. It is what I see as the significant the side of the political spectrum that is doing the most harm to the country, in my opinion,
Hmm.
and is being the biggest detriment to progress. That is what I'm trying to target my anger, target my criticism at. I'd rather do that than like argue with the left on neo pronouns.
Yeah, I think that that's a criticism in general that the left needs to hear. Like anyone, I think I need to hear that sometimes because you can get in the habit of criticizing the people you're around all the time. But you need to remind yourself like there are bigger issues at play here. So yeah, that's totally fair. So you mentioned that you've had a lot of challenges in your life, especially with your upbringing. Could you tell me
Mhm.
a bit more, at least, about like your family and growing up?
Uh, well, my mother, she was a heroin addict. She used heroin when she was pregnant with me. She used heroin, assumingly,
Wow,
till the day she passed away in 2017. It's
I'm
actually
sorry about that.
I don't have a lot of tattoos, but one of the few I do is a tattoo right here in remembrance of her. My father was a construction worker who fell like 3 stories off a building and got disabled, so he was not going to be able to take care of me either. And I know he also had his own alcohol and drug problems and stuff of that sort.
Wow.
So due to that, I had a lot of. Obviously, I was very lucky not to get any medical problems due to the heroin use. I did get things like ADHD, but that's something that's there's medicines and stuff for that more
Hmm.
nowadays. And but due to that more shaky household, and she would eventually end up being a homeless resident in DC. She would not always all the time come to school to pick me up, and so I had a very traumatic experience when I was 5 at one of the old schools I went to, where I was left at school and somebody took that opportunity to rape me. So that would be
Wow.
an, a traumatic experience that happened. And basically, shortly after that, I was taken in and raised by my grandparents in the city, which is I now call home, and I call as they basically raised me, which is College Park. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have had that chance at life. And I'm very, very, very thankful for it. And then there's other stuff that's like been challenging in my life, but that's the basics. That's the most of the backstory.
So, like, what did your mom know what happened to you, like, when you were 5 years old?
No, she didn't know. She died before I told her that. It's weird because when you're a man and you're raped, you don't
Yeah.
really realize it when you're that young, and when you have a society that doesn't that a rape victim isn't really supposed to be a man unless it's like the butt of a
Yeah.
joke at a prison. So when I just saw it as like a thing that happened, and it really was more of a more recent revelation. I was like, oh, I was raped. It was a revelation for me. The only like representation I can think of, even men who's been sexually assaulted in media, is like Terry Crews, and,
Yeah.
and I remember the reaction he got from people like Wendy Williams and,
Yep.
and other daytime commentators. So She did not know that. That's not something she knew before she passed away. No.
Is there a part of you like are you grateful that she didn't know, or do you wish you could have told her?
I feel like I know she must know to some extent the amount of damage her drug use did to me
Mm-hmm.
by her not being there. The amount of like birthdays and stuff she missed where I'm waiting by the window and she never enters, and uh, it has that type of an impact on it. But I do think that she should have known the full impact that her irresponsible actions had on my life. I do think that was something she should have known before she passed. But ultimately, that her not knowing that isn't something that bothers me too much.
How do you balance having like criticism and being real about the issue, like the realities or the consequences of your mom's like drug use and like addiction had, versus also you know missing her? Because I'm guessing because of that tattoo that you have, you miss her and you still loved her, right?
Yeah, I still loved her. It's a weird mental thing I have to deal with. Where on one hand, I miss her because she was my mother and she was a very kind woman, and I know she loved me.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it as a lost opportunity for her to have been my mom. But on the other hand, she is also the source of most of, if not like a good amount of my troubles when it comes to abandonment issues, when it comes to mental health issues, when it comes to the fact that I could have been born with disabilities when she was using
Mm-hmm.
heroin when she was pregnant with me, to of course the rape. I mean, I had to confront depression at a very early time in my life. I don't talk about it often, even on stream. But I remember when I was 12, I tried to kill myself. The only reason it didn't work was because
Wow.
I didn't know how to tie a knot properly because I was 12.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, it's a weird thing because her struggles and what she went through when it comes to addiction and poverty and homelessness uh, helped motivate me to get involved in politics because I wanted to help deal with the issues that made her have to go through that.
Yeah.
And I guess for me getting this more deeper analysis of these societal issues and what prompts addiction and what propels addiction and issues with homelessness and stuff like that has made it so I'm not going to be able to forgive her for what she did. And it is kind of weird to think the person whose irresponsibility led to me going through all of this is the person who led me to do all my work today.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I see her as a victim of a system, even if she does have some responsibility in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that um, it's more important that I go after that system than point a finger at my mother and like cast her aside and forget about her because I think I learned a valuable lesson through that.
I don't understand like how you're 19, right?
I just turned 20.
Oh, you just turned 20. Well, happy birthday. I don't
Thank
understand
you.
how you can be 20 years old and have such like a nuanced and honest, like, and reflective view on your past. Like, I don't know. That that seems kind of nuts to me. Like, I commend you on that shit. Most people don't ever get to that kind of point in their life in general. Um,
It's something you got to think about, and
yeah.
I guess it's just since I've had to work hard. I've had to deal with all these things at a very early age, and so when these things happen to you so early, you have years and years and years to think about them. And when they're such a large part of your life, and not just like a traumatic experience I resolved, there's never going to be a point where I've closed the book on this chapter when it comes to that trauma doing something.
Yeah.
I can have like a close on the chapter of that having control of my life when it
Mhm.
comes to having like a mental stranglehold or something like that. But it's something that I reflect on a decent amount. And if it's propelling a very large section of my work, which is probably the biggest part of my life, then I have to reflect on it. I have to think about it because it's something that propels me to keep working. There's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of anger there. There's a lot of sorrow there. And without it, I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing today. And with how much I work, of course, I think about it quite a lot.
Yeah. Um, I noticed that when you talk about your past abuse, you seem to be very specific in your language. Like you say that you are a rape survivor. And I don't know, like here in Canada, we tend to refer to rape, we put it under the category of sexual assault. Is there a reason why you use the term rape over sexual assault?
Because I was not groped. I was orally raped. The
Mm.
man penetrated my mouth.
So you feel like sexual assault is almost too broad of a category
Yeah,
um, to
I want to
demonstrate the
be.
level.
I don't want to because sexual assault can be something as a sexual assault is very broad. So I just want to be very specific about what occurred to me, because I was a man who was raped. I was not a man that like my ass was grabbed or this, or not that that's like good, but I want to be bluntly honest, right? I don't
Yeah,
want to sugarcoat exactly what happened to me or that pain. I want to make people aware and have to face the fact that this happens and that this does happen to men. And in this instance, yeah, that's what occurred to me. I was raped. Calling it anything else would be sugarcoating it.
does it feel almost like by when you're wording it that you're a rape survivor? Do you feel like that almost is a political statement by consequence?
I never really thought about it as a political statement, but there is meaning behind it. A rape
Yeah,
victim and rape survivor. I think the reason why I use the term survivor instead of victim is because, well, of course, I was the victim of a crime, but survivor is
yeah,
a word that I use for the fact that this is an experience I went through and I continue to survive. It's like if you think of any
yeah,
big, large traumatic event, like a large scale tragedy, or somebody who was in a war zone, or somebody who had to deal with anything, you'll refer to them a lot of times as they survived. They're one of the survivors from
yeah.
one of these events. And for me, a lot of people who were raped didn't survive. Many of them were shot. Many of them killed themselves. Many of them let that take over their life. But for me, that didn't happen. I kept going, kept working, and now still doing what I'm doing. So I survived.
Well, I think the way that you speak about it and the how candid you are is just something that's inspirational, like in general, for I mean anyone who's watching who's also a survivor or victim or however they like everyone just goes through their own journey on how to handle that shit. And it's hard to put yourself out there. It's really
Yep.
hard to put yourself out there, and I want to get into in a bit like how what encouraged you to start being open with yourself and then open online with what happened to you. But first, I want to talk about like, do you know with the person who did this, and just if you are not comfortable, like, feel free to just mention that.
Okay.
With the person who did this, did anything ever happen to them? Like, were there any consequences for their behavior?
Uh, I am unfamiliar with who it was. I was 5 years at the time. The only
Wow.
details I remember is that it was a larger African American male, and that's it. It was a larger black guy. That's all I remember. The thing is, when you have experiences like that at 5, and then you wait years to like untap them,
Yeah.
um, there's certain details that get wiped just because when you're young you don't remember things, but there's certain
Mm-hmm.
details that are like plunged deep into your mind. I don't remember what his face looked like. I i remember that there was like I was surrounded by Legos, but the thing that gets me the most is there's one detail that I remember vividly. Anytime I talk about it, it comes back to me, and it's the taste, which is probably the worst thing I could have
Yeah.
remembered out of all the details. So so I have no clue where they are. I hope that wherever they are, that they have stopped doing such activities, that they were eventually caught, and that they are getting reformative treatment so that nobody else can be hurt by them.
Is there like a part of you that, I mean, obviously now because of how long it's been, there's probably very little chance that you'll have, legal justice
Yeah,
in the
there's no
sense of
chance.
it.
There's no case. There's no case
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Does that
But
make things harder for you?
it doesn't make it harder for me as this idea that I want revenge. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
revenge. I just want to make sure that nobody else gets raped, that nobody else gets hurt.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing that gets me is the fact that there's no way I would be able to catch this individual with the details that I've laid out. So I just hope that's again why I really hope that it's just this individual eventually was caught, got reformative just got the treatment that was necessary to like make sure this never happens again, and that nobody else got raped by this individual.
Was that a journey for you, not wanting revenge? right? Because I
Um,
feel like that's often a human instinct.
yeah, but I try to be consistent on what I think, and I am
Yeah.
somebody who's against the death penalty. And when I think about it, I think about how the death penalty has been applied historically against mentally disabled people, disproportionately against Black people, and it still is to this day, and how a lot of people have been killed on death row. And when I think of things like the death penalty, that I would only grab for because it has no detriment. If you look at nations that have the death penalty compared to nations
Hmm.
that don't have the death penalty, it doesn't discourage any crime. There's no evidence for that. So for me to have a thing like the death penalty, it would only be for this feeling of revenge and justice. And that's not what I want out of it. I just don't want anybody else to be hurt. I don't want anybody else to be hurt by that. It's like if I was to if I, nobody a good example would be nobody wants to this isn't true, but if I want healthcare reform, I don't
Yeah.
afterwards after we achieve it just go break the kneecaps and deny healthcare to everybody who was in the other lobby. That would be ridiculous. And it doesn't help anybody. All it does is increase the suffering in the world, and nobody after getting revenge really feels better. The vast majority of data shows that after somebody like they execute the person who committed a crime, that the family usually, when looking at it, when it's for example a murder case,
Hmm.
feel actually sadder because they thought their family member was going to come back for some reason after it happened. So revenge doesn't solve anything, but making it so nobody else can ever feel that pain, I think is much more consequential and a
Yeah.
lot better.
It's weird. Like, I'm 10 years older than you, and I still feel like I have, like, getting to where you are feels like the goal of being that measured. But I have all this, like, anger. I normally I'm not a very angry person, but when I think about people who perpetuate this kind of stuff and victims, it just I can't help it. I get like really angry towards abusers and perpetrators. That's something like the death penalty, even though obviously there's tons of issues with how it gets carried out. It feels like it feels like a good thing. Like it feels like I want like those people bad things to happen to those people, but I recognize it's super emotional. So I don't know. I hope I get to the place because obviously it feels like that's the more correct way to go about it. But yeah, that anger is just hard to get over.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm still angry. I'm still
Yeah.
motivated a lot by by this deeper anger I have and feel towards everything that happened. It's just I think I'd rather point that anger towards the system that perpetuates these things and allows these things to go unabated than towards any individual or person. Because the thing is, I just don't want anybody else to have to feel that angry.
Yeah. Did if you take yourself back to that moment, and I know that that's really hard, but did you ever feel like shame or like did you blame yourself for what happened like when you were a kid?
Um, No, I didn't ever feel shame about that. They did have other effects. Like obviously, it made me sexually active a lot younger,
Mhm.
which was extremely harmful. And of course, other people that's not a good thing to be sexually active when you're like 8 or 9 and 10.
Mhm.
Like it makes you it accelerates your sexual maturity at an extremely young age, which has an extremely detrimental effect. I never felt shame over it um and until like I realized exactly what happened, and then of course there was like this idea of like feeling degraded and less of a man, but a lot of that I didn't feel at the
Mhm.
time because maybe I wasn't socialized to that point, or I think a
That
lot of it
came
was
later when you were a
m-
teenager?
maybe but I think a lot of it just had to do with the fact that I just pushed it to the side. I just saw it as a thing that happened, not as
Yeah.
I was raped.
Do you think that that was like a healthy coping mechanism? At least when you're a child and you still don't have like the tools to deal with that kind of trauma?
Do I think it was a healthy coping mechanism? No, I think it should have been addressed then and there, but
Yeah.
I I didn't know where to go. My mother certainly didn't have the resources to bring me to any therapists or anything like that.
Mhm.
I do wish it was addressed a lot earlier because I think then a lot of the like mental problems I had could have been addressed earlier on, and I think that it might have helped me like revert to like a normal kind of sexual like evolution as a youth.
Yeah. Well, you're now like you're so open about it, and I'm sure it's still challenging. But what was the thing like? What was the journey you went through to be open with yourself about it and be open with the internet about it?
I have my ex and I remember had a conversation with my ex, and it was we were just talking about stuff, and I remember just randomly thinking about it because it just came up. Usually it's just as some random memory, not something I really thought of that much. And I said to them like what occurred, and I kind of me and them basically like realized that I was raped. It was like this
Yeah.
just realization. I just thought of this thing that happened to me back in the past. Was like, wait a second, that was rape. That
Yeah.
I never looked at that like rape. That was rape. And then I kind of stood there, and for a little bit, it was like, well, I can't be. There's no way I was raped, or I can't be raped. Like that's impossible. To feeling like emasculated almost, even though again I
Yeah.
was 5. What I was supposed to do, and I go through all these emotions, and it's still something that's kind of hard to process. But when it came to like being open, there was online there was this um thing on Twitch about people being the victim of, I think it was like sexual harassment or sexual assault. I forget the exact thing, but there's always been a problem on Twitch with sexual harassment and sexual assault, especially at conventions, especially like in like tournaments and stuff like that. It's always been extremely toxic when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And I remember during that conversation, I was speaking to A4 Andre. I don't know if you're familiar with them, and I opened up about it. And then there was somebody else called Luop the God, who also shared his story. Who I don't think streams on Twitch anymore, but is a wonderful human being. I think he works in the music industry now. And we both shared our stories of coping as men who have dealt with rape and sexual assault.
Yeah.
And it was something that I felt was kind of like a release for me just being honest. And then afterwards, after the large amount of people that I didn't know sending me DMs like, hey, I was raped, I was sexually assaulted, this actually means a lot to me, I haven't seen a man talk that openly about that before. I really appreciate that. I connected a lot with that. After seeing that, I decided that I would be open about it, and when given the opportunity I would talk openly about it.
Have there been any hard moments, like particularly that you could think of when you were talking about it and it was really tough?
The first few times it was a lot more difficult than it is now. um it's hard to get the words out sometimes to describe
Yeah.
exactly what happened, to say the word that like I was raped, or like when asked for specifics, to say the specifics. And also knowing that ultimately me coming out like this meant that I was going to get a certain reaction from certain groups of people,
Yeah.
people who would use this as a tool to like
How
target me
fucked is
because I
that?
disagree with their politics. It's pretty messed up, but it's to be expected. This is the internet. This People who would use it as a tool of emasculation against me, people of course who also didn't believe me.
Wow.
I think rape victims, period, don't get believed in a lot of scenarios. But
Hmm.
when it comes to men, there's an extra area where people aren't used to seeing men as a victim of rape, or they'll see a man now and they'll be, maybe a larger man or something like that, and in their head they'll rationalize it's like, let's just push him off, or it's even
Hmm.
less believable because men aren't shown in a sympathetic light when it comes to rape.
Yeah.
Men are shown in a primarily negative light when it comes to rape, or a humiliating light when it comes to rape. Prison rape, for instance, is a actual legitimate issue. We have a thing about cruel and unusual punishment in this nation, and I would file that most certainly under cruel and unusual punishment. And so to see it kind of like the butt of a joke, or like when people think about rape it as part of the punishment, I think that has kind of seeped into the culture where now when men get raped or sexually assaulted, it's the butt of a joke. Terry Crews is the perfect example. When Terry Crews came out about him being sexually assaulted, he was met with humiliation, and Wendy Williams just like, oh, this isn't brave of him to do it. This is not brave at
Yeah.
all for him to come forward. It's absolutely disgusting, and I think really the only way we can push back on that is for more people to come forward. So I guess if no one else is going to bite the bullet, I will, right?
And that's why I said earlier that it feels like you saying that you are a rape survivor and that you're a man, and putting that in your bio, it feels like a political statement, and it shouldn't be. Like it shouldn't be a political statement, but it feels like it is, right? And it all because of the environment that we're in so much, and the changes that need to happen. Um, if there are any rape survivors, particularly male rape survivors, like who are watching right now, what would be your number one thing, like of advice, for them?
My number one advice is just for them to know that men can be raped. It is you should seek help if you need help, and you're not the only person, and it's not humiliating to have somebody do that to you. If anyone should feel humiliated, it's the person who did that to you.
Yeah. Um, the what do you why do you think in general male rape survivors are so stigmatized?
I think it would go back to what I said earlier with the socialization of rape as a punishment for men in prison,
Yeah.
as at the butt of a joke, and as men having the physical force to just push people off, not thinking about the other amounts of force that could be either emotional abuse or if somebody was extremely young, etc. Those types of things not really taken into consideration. So I think that when it comes to that I think that's what also I think just a lack of awareness. When you think of the resources available for rape victims, there's not a lot available for male rape victims or
Yeah.
specific facilities for men who have been battered or abused or raped.
What do you think are some things that like would actually help male survivors?
I think more public awareness. I think the biggest thing would be addressing the huge crisis of rape in prisons,
Yeah.
doing everything possible to crack down on it as hard as physically possible. Um, addressing it with an actual public campaign of like it is a real issue. Rape is not part of the punishment. If your husband or father or son was locked up, would you want them to be raped in prison when they already are alone from family? I mean, think about it. Let's say you go to prison for smoking a joint. All you did was smoke a joint, and now not only do you have to be separated from your family and your loved ones,
Yeah.
now you're also being raped on a routine basis. And again, all you did was smoke a joint.
Wow. Um, in general, I mean, speaking of, I guess, our idea of justice, when you think of justice for a rape survivor, what's the number one thing that comes into your mind?
Justice for a rape survivor.
Yeah.
The conviction of the rapist so they can't do it again. And
Hmm.
and put into a system that is reformative, because this idea of locking them up and throwing away the key, well, that could just move that problem to the prison, number one, and which we just talked about why that's a huge issue. And number two, um, this isn't addressing like the societal problem. A justice for rape survivors isn't only just about like locking up one person. It's about addressing the systematic problem with rape and how it's treated and how victims are treated, particularly male victims, when it comes to what I'm particularly concerned with here. Not of course I care about all victims, but like that's
Hmm.
my area of like where I try to focus my time.
Yeah.
And so I would say that justice for me is making it so nobody else can be hurt by that individual again, and doing your best to protect people going forward from not being raped. I don't think justice is this moment where people have these like wild fantasies of like, well, we'll cut off their balls, put them on two stakes, and uh, burn them
Yeah.
alive. Well, bury them in a mound of cow feces, and like these wild torture fantasies. That doesn't help anybody. Doesn't stop anybody from
Hmm.
being raped. All that does is satisfy your personal feeling of running revenge, and that usually doesn't help any victims. I mean, I can't think of a case of that helping any victims. Again, stuff like that doesn't actually undo that damage.
Is there a way you can fit retribution in and it not be like, revenge or torture style? Like, even something as simple as the abuser acknowledging what they did, apologizing, and doing like some community service or some kind of thing that they have to do to pay for what they did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against the idea that of rape victims, I mean, rape perpetrators, rapists, having to either give like large sums of money to shelters
Hmm.
or having to pay back in some other way. Most certainly, learn exactly and be clearly shown why what they did was terrible, so they never do it again if they were ever released back into society. Those are the types of things I would be interested in. I'm not interested in this kind of wild, toxic type of we're going to torture people in prison like fantasies that many people push.
Yeah. Um, in general, like as a survivor, how do you balance accepting the fact that you were a victim of something, you're now a survivor, talking about your past, but also not letting it define who you are in the future?
Um, say that question one more time.
So, as a victim, like how do you, and a survivor, like how do you balance talking about your past, but not letting it define who you are in the future? Or is it always going to be a part of who you
I
are?
mean, it's part of who I am, right? It's an experience that I've experienced, something that's defined my story. All these experiences have defined my story. I
Mm-hmm.
can't just like remove it from me. But the best I can do is, of course, try to make sure it's not a cloud over my head that controls my life. It can help define my story, but not control my life. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's important. Not letting making it, not letting it make you live in fear. Not letting it stop you from being who you are, and not letting it not putting you in a state where it is difficult for you to live your life. I think that's the best anybody can do.
Do you think that there's anything that, like on a government level, that could have been done where, that would have changed the outcome of your rape, right? Like the, in terms of like how you handled it afterwards or acknowledging what happened or even possibly preventing it, or, you just being more open about what happened at the time.
It's hard for me to predict like on the individual case level, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the actual like if the cops like did a 360 and like busted through the window, could they have
Yeah.
like tackled the guy? I can't do that, but I do think there's certain things that could help decrease it. Of course, the main thing I'm always going to point to is a reformative justice system.
Yeah.
I think one of my most deeply held positions is my opposition to the death penalty. I believe it is barbaric, unproductive. It doesn't deter crime, and it shows that we view prisoners as somebody to be beaten for their sins, not as like human beings that eventually should re-enter society. Kind of lock them up and throw away the key. But that type of mentality that's led to mandatory minimum sentencing, the drug war, and the death penalty has led to us having 6% of the world's population, but about 20% of the world's prisoners. And
Yeah.
it is not only a huge tax burden, it is also has not had any effect really on crime. It has not helped decrease crime, and many nations who have much more reformative systems deal with crime in a much better way. So for me, I don't care if like some random person gets a better feeling because oh we locked him up, threw away the key, and that
Yeah.
feels great. What matters to me is having less people be raped, less people sexually assaulted, and I think having a reformative criminal justice system is the best way to achieve that.
Do you think
Death
it
to the death
helps?
penalty.
Do you think that it helps? Like there was a documentary. Did you see Finding Neverland? The documentary uh, about Michael Jackson that came out like a few years ago.
Uh, no, I've not.
Have you like heard about like I guess the stories from his victims?
I have not heard the stories. I've heard like that he again I haven't looked into it, but that he
Yeah.
possibly molested children. I'm not a Michael Jackson expert.
Yeah.
Um, I'm
Doesn't
more of
work
like
into foreign
a
policy.
yeah, I'm more of like a Rob Zombie or like Frank Zappa type of guy.
Yeah. Um, I guess something that really disturbed me in general to this day is how the his victims have been treated, especially with people that are just like victims of someone that's very popular or very well known. And I wonder if like the Me Too movement or anything associated with that, you feel like has contributed some good to people coming out about that kind of survival, or do
I
you
I, I
think
do
that there's
think the Me Too movement did contribute good when it comes to people coming forward to hold powerful people accountable. I
Yeah.
don't think it had any real impact when it comes to legislative changes or structural changes. But
Hmm.
I do think it on a cultural level it had to change. I also have a larger criticism of the Me Too movement, not really including like there was men who were involved in it, but men were not at all like given the microphone in any instance. I think a bigger criticism I would have is that a large part of it did not feel like there was no moment in the Me Too movement where we all looked to men and were like, yes, they should be
Yeah.
that is part of it. I think a lot of it was also like the Wendy Williams type style to Terry Crews, where like Wendy Williams will like get up and like cheer for somebody coming forward about that, but then turn to Terry Crews and kind of look around like this isn't really your
And
moment.
she
This is
still
not
has
really
her show, right?
yeah.
Like, have
Yeah,
there
she
been
still
any
has her show.
consequences?
No, of course there's been no consequences. She profits off of outrage marketing. So it's the same thing with I don't know, you know Keemstar? Are you
Yeah.
familiar with him? He recently said that he didn't believe that Logan Paul sexually assaulted a woman or raped a woman. And the thing is, I don't know about the specifics of the case.
Yeah.
But the reason he gave was he was basically like, just don't open your mouth.
Wow.
That was the reason he gave. Just don't open your mouth. And there's a general ignorance when it comes to like how rapes occur,
Hmm.
how actually like fear is used. A lot of people think rape is just like a primarily like a sexual release thing. A lot of people do it specifically um because of the fear and control factor.
Yeah.
So I sorry, I just came into my mind. I just want to say that. But again, like men, I don't think men were at all like a priority when it came to that. I'll put it this way. There was no moment in the Me Too movement, except for maybe Terry Crews, and whether that's part of it, I would say is debatable, where I felt like that's me. I feel represented here. That never occurred for me.
That sounds like it was really frustrating for you, like
Yeah.
as a male rape survivor.
It was frustrating because I was happy for all the other survivors who were coming forward and were like getting their like their moment to speak their truth to power, but I never felt represented by those stories. I never felt represented by what was going on there.
Hmm.
I saw it as other people going through their own thing. Maybe it was because I hadn't come to terms with what happened to me, but there should have been a moment where I saw that and I was like, wait, that's me. With Terry Crews, that somewhat happened, but then of course the reaction kind of like snap me back to okay, never mind. That never happened for me. I had to come to that realization on my own without the movement.
Yeah. I think like especially when you look at yourself now, you're 20 years old, incredibly young, right? You have a successful career as a streamer. You also have a successful career as a political activist. Like something that most people do not accomplish at all, like throughout their entire lives. Yet,
Hmm.
is there a part of you that's particularly proud of what you've accomplished considering all of the shit that happened to you?
Well, of course, anybody who's in politics is an egomaniac to some extent. Because what you have said to the world is that me being the special someone,
Yeah.
have a cure for what ails you, and then shakes the bottle, right? That we all that I for some reason think that my what I think about politics is actually the solution to an issue, that I hold the power to
Mm.
do it, I hold the truth. So to some extent I have to be proud of what I've done up to this point, but there's also like a feeling of regret. And to be completely like blunt, like recently when like I came out as gay after my breakup. I came out as somebody who's now openly homosexual, and
Mm.
there was just kind of a moment like, God damn it, I wish I had a normal life. I wish when I was a kid, I got to
Yeah.
like just play games and play video games. And now that I'm in college, instead of doing all this, I wish I just could go out and date more. I could just like actually just be a person on campus, like maybe join a sports team. I did boxing in high school. I love that. Maybe I should
Yeah.
have kept doing that. That was my other employment option, was getting into boxing. I've actually my this is my class ring. It's kind of hard
Oh
to see,
wow.
but there's two boxing gloves. So I guess for me, there is like like a pride in it because I did what a lot of people couldn't do. Um, but it's not something that I think people should really envy because it takes a lot of work. Definitely when you consider that I was doing like some of this through homelessness, some of this through
Yeah.
abuse, some of this through a lot of like some bad stuff. And I do sometimes wish I could have lived a different life. It's like if my mother just didn't get hooked.
Well, it's always tough, like when you're looking back, right? Because you acknowledge that a lot of the shitty things that happened have made you who you are, and I'm guessing you're proud of who you are at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I in general, as a new streamer, and I'm sure anyone who is a fan of your content, I in general, like, I just want to thank you for, like, you've in particular been a huge inspiration for me. It's in general, like, I actually, one of the things that kept me from doing stuff on Twitch, and people have been telling me to stream for a while, and the thing that kind of was keeping me was thinking, oh, like, I don't know, like, for stuff like that, you have to kind of, I assume you're gonna have to drop your integrity a little. You're gonna have to make, like, some concessions here and there, and people don't want quality content. At the end of the day, it's entertainment, and so those are the sacrifices you're gonna have to make. And in general, and I don't know, like, there's probably multitude of reasons, but I feel like you're one of the primary people who have brought really quality content to Twitch. That's not like, it's, you balance entertainment with also being really responsible for what you do, especially to the politics like panel community. So
Yeah,
yeah, thanks
panels
for that.
panels is a complicated game because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people, and I'm somebody who works in politics. There's nobody who would love if I could just say that, hey, all I need to do is just take my politics, put it on Twitch, and boom, it's a success. That doesn't work. I tried that for the first 6 months of streaming. It failed
Yeah.
miserably. I was a 20 to 30 viewer Andy. That didn't work. And not to bash all the 20 to 30 viewer Andys out there. Um, but what I needed to realize ultimately, and I had to do this while balancing with integrity, that you can't take an issue like politics that has war and poverty and healthcare and economics and these
Mm-hmm.
complicated social political issues, and the few moments people have out of their lives that have to deal with COVID, poverty, war, depression, and work from their 9 to 5s with no union representation. And they want to spend that time learning about complicated multi state trade agreements
Yeah.
on Twitch. Good luck. There was no way I was going to be able to do that on this platform. Number one, it's hard for get people to do that. Period. We have terrible voter turnout rates and that's only like one day every 2 to 4 years. And democracy is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be 24/7, 365 days a year. We talk about protests and all the other activism people should be doing.
Yeah.
So how was I going to get these people hooked on stuff like a panel show? I can't do it like Oxford. And what I realized, and I think this is something that a lot of other people on Twitch need to realize, is that you cannot make Twitch more like politics. You got to make politics more like Twitch if you want people in this community to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like my hippy dippy panel show came in. And that also came in with a separate desire that I wanted to see the right and the left talk more on the platform because there was no other dialogue. Every panel show on Twitch at that point, and I would say basically every panel show except for maybe like one exception now, possibly, which I would give over to John Burke as the other exception, but he doesn't do it
Mm-hmm.
super consistently. Is it's I want to say this in a polite manner, but it's a circle jerk. A
Yeah.
bunch of people who agree with each other in a circle talking about how right they all are and they all agree. Or if they're disagreement, it's like, well, I believe we should give workers $27. Well, I believe $28. Well, I believe $29. It's
Mm-hmm.
the dialogue that is completely inconsistent what was going on at the time. They were having that type of dialogue. At the same time, Donald Trump was in the White House not even giving maternity leave, pledging to give maternity leave, going back on it.
Yep.
Somebody was talking about banning Muslims from entering the United States. And yet we were in a circle talking to the people who are already on our side.
Yep. That's
And so
a
that's something that angered me. So I needed to do something to make
yeah.
politics more like Twitch, while at the same time filling that void that was filled, that I think needed to be filled. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
Hippy Dippy was born. And originally it was just, and then we did like this thing called the Showdown, which was 1v1. And I continually evolved it into eventually the Hippy Dippy Championship, which I know is especially like, and we had the Hippy Dippy Rumble and all these different events that I think And then we even have like a real wrestling belt that goes to somebody who's a really, really good debater,
Yeah.
really, really good at having these conversations. And we promote it with promos that people kind of like shoot on each other. And it's like this huge thing that I think is like a ambassadorship to the rest of Twitch to say, hey, I know these topics are boring. I know you work all day. I know the last thing you want to do when you get home is listen about these complicated stuff.
Yeah.
Just try it out. There's stuff that's more intense than this, but just start with this. Start with this. Start with this format, which I know you're somewhat familiar with in other areas. We've doing it in some unique ways. And that's what I want Hippy Dippy to be going forward. An ambassadorship to the rest of Twitch to bring more people onto the side of it.
It's kind of crazy because
And trying to balance that entertainment value
yeah.
with trying to balance that entertainment value with the integrity and standards of the regulations that I place on the show is definitely a difficult task, but I think it's a necessary balance that needs to be made, because the two extremes of complete chaos or a dictatorship where everybody just raises their hands before speaking,
Mhm.
there has to be a balance if you're going to appeal to a
I
wider
actually I
audience.
hate the thing where you have to raise your hand because it feels so unnatural.
I can't currently hear you actually.
Hello? Can you hear
Yeah,
me
now I
now?
can hear you. Now I can.
Okay, can you still hear me now?
Now I can't hear you again.
Oh my god. Okay. That's super weird. Um okay, I think does it work now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. What's crazy to me is how legitimate it's become. And I mean, and now it doesn't seem so crazy because seeing how much thought and work you put into it, but it's kind of feeling, and maybe I'm just like in this Twitch bubble, but kind of feels like the Academy Awards of like debating, you know? Like it feels like that legitimate. So you must be like really fucking like that's really cool. Like to see like someone like Vosh like really proud of holding that belt, and that's something that he
Yeah,
really
it's the
pushes for.
one big thing in his background. If you look at his
Mm,
background, the one thing that sticks out is always that belt.
yeah.
Always the belt. And when every time I introduce somebody to the idea, they're like, "Wait, there's a real belt?"
Yeah.
They're blown away. I remember John Burke live didn't know when he was watching into the Hippy Dippy Championship match it was a real belt, and then he sees it and he's blown away by it. And I will say that right now I am the largest political panel show on Twitch.
Mm,
I run it. I run the largest political panel show. There is nobody that gets close to the show I
yep.
do. The closest I would say would be Prime Show, but that's a completely different model. We appeal to different markets. His is
Mm,
quantity, and I do think it's pretty quality. But I concentrate on having one good show a week and producing these larger shows now with the Hippy Dippy Championship, trying to diversify. And I think there would maybe be John Burks, but again, just not a big presence on Twitch comparatively. But like, I'm not trying to bask in this. I don't want this to be a we're the WWE and now the WCW is gone.
mm.
We're on top. We're good. Because back in the day, I every day I would compare how my show was doing to Tree of Logics, and that would be the one. And Tree of Logic back in the old days, people don't know. A lot of people are new to my community. Tree of Logic banned anyone from going onto her panel show who ever went on mine if they were conservative. Tried to
Really?
literally dry up all the guests I hand out, run me out of
Yeah.
business. It failed. It failed miserably. Then she got banned off the platform for doing a few too many TOS violations. But those days were rocky for the show. Those days were rocky. And instead of me like now sitting in this position, I want to keep growing it. That's why I'm thinking of like Hippy Dippy Championship. Okay, that's not enough. Let's do a Rumble. Let's do a different format. Okay, how
Mm,
about we make more belts? I've been talking about doing tag team titles for tag team events for people making who work well together, making tag teams to do stuff. The dating show, which of course is not a championship stuff, but it's still going to fall under the Hippy Dippy brand. The brand is expanding,
yeah.
and I want it to continue to grow. I
You're
want to keep
always pushing
innovating with it.
yourself
Yeah,
to be
and
better.
there's so many good matches I want to make, and I've been trying to make. Of course, Destiny I mean, Vosh versus Bastiat was a banger of a match. I mean, nobody expected it to go the way
Yeah.
it did, and it was absolutely great. And the split decision added just the right tension. The production value of the show has skyrocketed with real props. We have announcers, we have graphics, we have promo shoots, we have music in the background, we have full like rosters
It's
of
actually epic.
full rosters and stuff now. We have with the moderators are being a lot more. We have judges. We have judges that range inside depending on the range, the size of the show. We have different formats with a fatal four way, the Rumble, the just one-on-one matches. all this different stuff we're doing. Of course, there will be more tag team matches. It's constantly expanding, but all I can think about is what can we do next? What can we do different? And it is stressful at times. Sometimes I think about throwing the towel in, but every time I end up not doing it, I never regret it, because
Yeah.
it just do something. It's just this big new match, this big new thing. And right now, I just want to keep growing it, keep doing new things, and keep growing the show. Because without Hippy Dippy, I would not have the audience I have now. I wouldn't. It would just not.
I
It just wouldn't be the case.
what tell me about one of those moments of when you almost threw the towel in.
Um, there was a streamer called Endernax. I don't think a lot of people are familiar with them.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't
But
know either.
he tried very hard to make it so no conservative to go on my show. And at that moment, me having to go through all these like private meetings with conservatives to make sure they're still coming on my show, I just thought like this is too much trouble that it's work. And I was
Yeah.
gonna just throw in the tell like it isn't worth it. I don't want to do this anymore. There's a lot of times where the due to my heavy work schedule, organizing panels takes so much work,
Yeah.
because you got to coordinate 8 people. To the Rumble was like 15 people I had to coordinate, and then there was
Hmm.
instances of people breaking the rules and all the last second cancellations. There's so many instances where I just, this isn't worth it, this isn't worth it. And then the lack of guests, lack of variety, where I'm having the same people on and having to start a whole new brand called the Hippy Dippy Recruitment Show, which is like the
Yeah.
Austin kind of recruitment show. We're trying to bring in new people all the time, trying to bring in new talent, new stars, trying to do something with that. Like it is so difficult at times to keep this engine running, that it's like a lot of times I'm like, I should shut off the engine, just do React content. It's so much easier. But every
Yeah.
single time I do that, like I get a or like hint at it, I see like a visceral reaction from my community, like don't you
Yeah, they
dare
won't let
do it.
you.
Yeah, and of course I would think the help from my editor, Mr. Geek, and a person called Danabo,
Hmm.
definitely helped. They helped me manage this a lot more, and it's a lot easier for me to do it now.
Was there like do you feel like because you're always pushing yourself to be better, right? Is there any kind of and I'm somewhat new to your content, but is there any are there any like hippy dippy championships or debates that you feel like went kind of south that you're not super proud of?
I would say that the Hippy Dippy Rumble was the most massive event I ever had. It was almost broke 3K,
Hmm.
which is like was is like huge for me.
Yeah,
And again,
it is huge.
this is a recent event. And of course, that's only on one platform. I partnered with Modern Day Debates to do
Yeah.
that. That was a partnership where I partnered with another brand. That's the first of its kind of
Hmm.
two things like we're doing on two separate platforms. Because if you look at Twitch contracts, I cannot stream my stuff on YouTube at the same time as Twitch. Technically, he can, because he didn't sign a Twitch partnership contract,
Yeah.
and so we used that loophole so we could broadcast it at the same times. Because
Yeah, that's actually really smart.
I wanted to connect the YouTube, bring in more communities, connect this stuff, but there was some moments with people like breaking the rules on that, and how much chaos there was in the early rounds, and how much chaos. Like I wanted chaos in that. It was a rumble. It was built for that, but there was just too much at times. And I think with a little bit more regulation and more being more picky with exactly who we're going to put on that show, it would have been a lot better. I can also think of
Who was specifically on that show?
we had Shion Head, we had Bastiat, we had Hunter Avalon, we had
Wow.
Actual Justice Warrior. We of course had Modern Day Debates, who was helping me moderate. We had Actual Jake, we had Demon Mama, we had I Hypocrite with his favorite with his famous N-word moment, which he's uploaded 2 videos since then trying to justify his use of the N-word on my show.
Hmm.
He's a unique individual. Um there was who else was there? There was like so many. Prime Kai's was there. Um God, there were so many. So critically thinking veteran, who's a veteran of the hippy dippy space at this point.
These are a lot of big personalities, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it was a gigantic show. We almost got Destiny. It just didn't end up happening. We
mhm.
almost got Destiny for it. It would have been like a clear shot from there to Destiny v Vosh, which is the match I really want to make for that title belt, but I just can't seem to hook Destiny into it.
I love
He's
how
always
passionate
seemed
you are.
he
Like,
always seems so. Oh, thank you very much. He always seems like so like on the line of it, but I can
yeah.
never get him off of it. There's gonna have to be some. His community is gonna have to be the one to make him do it, because there's. I have tried everything. I have offered him a million times on a million different occasions in voice and DMs. I might go back to just emailing him.
Yeah.
trying to get him to do it. But yeah, but that match is that's the match I want to make. And past that, I there's just so many ideas I could do with that belt. There's so many ways I can go with it.
How did you train yourself on handling? Because there's no school that you can go to that teaches you these skills in this new avenue of Twitch. So, like, how did you train yourself how to handle all of these various big personalities?
I think since I worked in politics and I worked in the Maryland General Assembly, where I had to sit
Mm-hmm.
next to people saying some pretty awful things, and I had some weird experiences in there, but having to work around these like big, like state senators who've been there for 30, 40 years. I served in the last session Mike Miller was Senate president for. Mike Miller was the longest serving Senate president in United States history, I
Wow.
believe. And he passed away recently, but I served in the last session, and he was a titan when it comes to Maryland politics and having to interact with these people. Um, I and of course, a lot of politicians have egos, and I think that when it comes to egos and a lot of the things that are difficult to work with when politicians, it's very
Mm-hmm.
similar to streamers. The only difference is politicians actually can sit down and do work and actually are punctual
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's true. Well, that's another thing that's a real challenge with these, like, with streamers in general, is people are really flaky,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So that's really hard with the
that's one
panels.
of the things that pisses me off more than anything else, and something that I always tell myself I got to be more like persistent on. Now when people just don't show up, like I just stop talking to them because it's not worth all the trouble to get these big stars if they're just not going to show up. If they don't show up or they like flake out the last second, I
Mm-hmm.
stop. I just don't want to work with them anymore. It's not worth that effort. It's not worth that emotional commitment because that type of emotional commitment will make me quit the show.
Um, could you tell me, like, one of those people that I guess has been pretty flaky that you've just, decided not to work with?
Republican Nation has did it. The thing about Republican Nation is he sided with, in this case he sided with WCW. He sided with a Tree of Logic,
Yeah.
and of course that went kind of under. And then recently he came back to me like, hey, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, sure, okay, show up to this one, and they just didn't show. And since then he's like apologizing. I just haven't responded. There's just no reason to. Um, One person who's been hit or miss for a while has been Drone Tech, who's a kind of like a 70K Andy on YouTube. He
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes he'll like cancel like the day before, or there'll be like problems with his equipment or something like that. Besides that, you want to know somebody? I remember having I don't remember the specifics of it. Peter Coffin. I tried to get Peter Coffin on a show. He basically like blue balled me to the last second. It was like I can be on for like an hour, and I never tried again. That was probably one of the worst ones.
Yeah. And someone in my chat was like, I'm taking notes. No, I am not getting into the panel world. That is, I've seen how hard it is, and I
It is
genuinely,
also a
yeah,
vicious business. Like all the
yeah,
panel
no,
hosts are like publicly nice to each other, but you can tell like when how they like discuss each other's show, they're always trying to outcompete or
yeah.
try to outdo each other. It's like a
I'm
constant
so
thing.
glad you're being honest about that. That's really cool.
It's so
Yeah,
obvious. Like the thing is, I do my best to be nice, but like at the end of the day, these people are my competitors.
yeah.
Definitely, like for example, John Burke. Like we do our best to like collab where we can. He was on my last CBDB championships. I've been on the show multiple times, and but we stream literally at the exact same hours our shows. His is 8 p.m. Mine is
Hmm.
8 p.m. Same day. There's no way we're not competitors when it comes to specifically being on Twitch on that aspect, right? Thankfully, like I've been able to use it to my advantage to like, hey, I don't have enough equipment. I don't have enough people to do Hippie Dippy this week. I have other stuff that's busy. I'll just go on his show and that can make my community's panel fill for the day. Is that free advertising for him? Yes, but that's also less work for me. And of
Yeah.
course, he's come on my show as
So you
well.
always have to wait.
So yeah, it's a constant like weighing of it of stuff. And of course, like I disagree with some of the ways other people run their shows, but that's their shows. It's not my business. Um, they can run their shows into the ground if they want.
Is it like that's something? Has that in general? Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, there was even a few. The thing is, like, I gained like kind of a monopoly on it for a while. Chud
Hmm.
Logic, I don't know if you know of Chud Knight. He had
Yeah.
his whole thing. I bought that out. I
Oh, I didn't even know.
I bought it out, put it out of existence, I eliminated the competition. Okay, I did a Vince McMahon. I did a Vince McMahon. One
I
of my
appreciate that
finest
you're being
moments.
honest about this because so many streamers like they act like competitions. Like everyone's always trying to be, visually really supportive of one another, but like secretly everyone knows that like everyone's
It's good. It's
competitors.
good for work. It's good for PR. But I mean, the
Hmm.
truth is, at the end of the day, like we're competitors. Now, thankfully, right? like you can see if a good way to see that, like if somebody like really doesn't want to screw with you is if they change their schedule around yours.
Yeah.
If they change it so they're not streaming during your hours.
Hmm.
So just there's certain panel shows that have specifically chosen not to stream at 8 p.m. on Friday and have moved them
Yeah.
multiple from Fridays or moved it till after Hippy Dippy ends because they know if they try to compete with Hippy Dippy, they're not going to win
Yeah.
directly. You can't do that directly. The
Does
only person who hasn't is John Burke, but again, that's where I love that. I love that competition. It motivates me to do it more and motivates me to work harder.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I was picking the times, when I was getting to streaming, and I was trying to pick like when did I want to stream? I rarely stream at this time, right? I'm only doing this because this was the time that you were available. But normally I do 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and I picked that time specifically because I did not want to compete with you. It's like that is not going to be a good time. That's not going to be fun, and yeah, not a good idea.
Hey,
So
I appreciate you making the wise choice. Okay.
yeah, I was like, nope, pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
there's like the thing is, I'll see it like sways in my viewership number. Like, I'll see a bump in my viewership when Destiny goes offline because a lot of his
mhm,
community is in mine. When Vosh
yeah,
goes offline, I see a bump in my community as well because a lot of Vosh's people go to my community. There's IRI, same thing. IRI's community has a lot of crossover. If Bastiat streams, like usually a lot of his community flows into mine. Demon Mama also similar. So um yeah, it's very obvious that a lot of us are competing for some of the same viewers. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like we are all coworkers, and I do think with political Twitch being a new category, we can rise together. We're settlers. We're manifest destiny. The
yeah.
whole this whole destiny is a woman's name. This whole new category, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I think we a lot of us can build up together, which is good. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I gotta pay my bills.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate the honesty. Like, does jealousy ever factor into it? If you're being like totally honest, right? I know you're probably
Jealousy.
gonna be like, "Oh, I'm not jealous of anyone," but do
Of
you
course,
think?
I am
Yeah.
jealous of the fact that I am not a 1K Andy yet. I'm a 500 to
Mm,
700K, 700K Andy, no, 500 to 700. Man, Twitch would love me if I was a 500 to
yeah.
700 viewer Andy. I want to be a 1K Andy. And you know what? I remember wanting to be just 100 viewer Andy, then wanting to be,
Yeah.
no, when I'm 200, now 300, 500. And now I just want to be a 1K Andy. And I know right when I hit it, I'm going to want to be a 2K Andy. And you know what? That's
Yeah.
the grind. That's all. The thing is,
And it's fun. I
that's the
love
same
that
grind
shit.
that I had in my political work. I'm having here. I don't
Yeah.
when I do something, I'm not doing something that half-ass it. If I say I'm running for office or I say I'm doing this, I'm not just dipping my toes in it and stepping out. There's a lot of projects I do that fail, but that's because I need to attempt and innovate on a lot of these ideas if I want to succeed. I went on Twitch with the idea that like, hey, if this goes somewhat well, I'm gonna go hard on it. And you know what? Now that this is how I house myself, I'm gonna go hard on it, and I'm not gonna be satisfied until I'm like top 1,000 Twitch channels, top 500. Then it'll be top 500. Then I want to be top 100, and it'll just keep going. I just want to keep that climb. Of course, it's like ambitious and everything, but I didn't think I'd make it this far. I remember Shroud back in the day said something along the lines like, "Hey, if you can hold over 400 viewer Andes, like you've made it. If you can do over 400, then you've made it. From there, sky's the limit." And hey, I've done it. I've broken that like shroud barrier that he talked about. Well, no, that's not shroud. It was Devin something.
Mhm.
He's the dude of the D&D. Somebody in chat will bring it up. Somebody who knows who I'm talking about. It's not shroud. But I just want to keep that climb. I love this. This is so much.
Yeah.
It's Devin Nash. Yeah, it's Devin Nash that I'm talking about. Not Shroud. It's Devin Nash. Um, I this a lot of my work I don't enjoy. I actually don't really enjoy being on boards and stuff. I see it as like a
Mhm.
service. I see it as like a necessary. It's like jury duty to me,
Yeah.
right? This is the job I enjoy, which I
Yeah.
think is dangerous for people who want to compete with me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's super cool. When it comes to how you're passionate about it, the the push that you constantly have to constantly be better and be better. I just think it's admirable. Like I feel like when I got into streaming, I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, where I think that there were some people that were trying to keep my expectations really low. Um, and I appreciated that. But on one end, there's this really, really corny quote. And like, Yeah, this is gonna be really cringe. I'm just like warning your audience, right? But
Okay.
there's this cringy quote that I literally have like beside me in my planner all the time. Um, but it's shoot for the moon because you'll land amongst the because even if you
I
fail,
love
you'll
that
land
quote.
amongst the stars, right? And it sounds and it's just like it's really worked out for me. Like just having my eye on the prize all the
Yeah.
time and just taking yourself way more seriously than you probably should be taking yourself.
Hmm.
It ends up you end up almost like I don't know. It feels like it's working out, and it's obviously really worked out for you. And I just
Yeah.
think it's an attitude that more people should have. And instead of just shitting on people, saying like, "Oh, you're just full of yourself," I don't know. I think we should be supportive towards that.
I aim for like things that for example, like last Hippie Dippy Championship, I wanted 2K live viewers. I wanted to see if I can get the Rumble numbers. I got
Yeah,
1.8 was like the highest I got. Obviously, I didn't hit it. But the fact that I hit 1.8 viewers and I was looking like, damn, I didn't hit 2K. And I was like, wait a second. Like 2 months ago, if I hit 1K, I was going wild. Like
yeah,
1K was like a massive thing for me.
mm,
Now it's like I'm getting close to just breaking 2K on the average. Like I think now it's like most of my hippie dippies are gonna be like at least 800 to 1K. So in the special events, they're going to be starting to break 2K. And back in the day, I just wanted the special event to break 1K. So by me continuously aiming higher, I keep hitting the moon. And so I try to do the same thing with like politics. Like, but I think a lot of it I've exceeded a lot of my initial expectations. So I just
mm,
keep setting my expectations higher because even if I don't hit these new wild expectations,
yeah.
then hey, I'm better than where I was before. Much better than where I was before.
Yeah, the scariest thing is stagnation to me, right? Because I study history, so it's like I see what happens to empires when they stop changing, they stop improving, and they just, they stagnate and then you inevitably
Yeah.
go down. So you've always got to push
There's a lot of
yourself.
streamers in the streamer graveyard who
Yeah.
didn't innovate, didn't change, didn't do something. For a while, I was just talking for policy every day by just reading for policy articles. And you know what? I am not a text to speech application. Okay. I barely read articles anymore on
Mm,
stream because I think it's better for me to read it beforehand and then talk about it with chat. I think that's a more interactive experience because they don't want me to read somebody else's words. They want to hear it from me. I had to innovate out of that. I had to do more
yeah.
pre-prepared content. I had to figure out a way to get away for that. YouTube is like a huge thing for me now. I have so many people who come from my YouTube community and watch my live streams now. I did not realize how much
Yeah.
that would help my discoverability because Twitch has terrible, terrible, terrible discoverability. I
Mm,
had to keep innovating. I'm thinking of doing it in Instagram. I'm thinking of doing it in TikTok. There's so much stuff I gotta do and expand on. I'm trying to do soon. I'm gonna try to do after we're gonna do a Patreon. We have AdSense. I'm gonna be doing multiple daily uploads. No longer
yeah.
just it used to be one every other day. Now it's one every day. Soon it's going to be multiple daily uploads. And
Yeah.
so the output is increasing, which is even better for the algorithms on YouTube. Like I just had 22,000 like YouTube subscribers, and you
Oh,
compare that to people
congrats.
like Mike from PA, right? Who has like what 2K? Like I'm not trying to hit Mike from PA, but it shows that I'm investing in other areas that other streamers on this platform
Yeah.
aren't because I'm ambitious. I'm thinking about making websites. Hell, I'm thinking about doing stuff that I haven't talked on stream before. I'm thinking about like starting like using this and using the money and influence I make from this and then investing it in local media in Maryland, which then helps my political career.
Yeah. It can
And not
all
to mention,
just
this
work
helps my
together.
political career amazingly. Like there's I let me put it this way. Now that I'm single and openly gay, I have an app. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called Grinder.
Oh, never heard of that one.
Never heard of that one,
They don't
but
like me there.
it's like a shopping app. Don't worry about it. But I'm getting recognized on Grinder, and that's the
How
weirdest
cool
experience in the world.
is that cool?
It's kind of cool, but it's also like now I can't sleep with you. Now I can't do. I now I can't go out with you.
So you
This would be
don't
a
want to
little
have sex
weird.
with your fans,
I
basically.
do. I don't like the thing is if I go out and I'm like going to my fans like, hey, I'm the whatever star. I'm not doing that, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody comes to me and say, "Oh, I saw your stuff. You're cool," maybe hypothetically, but right now I just maybe not. Like I don't know. Um, maybe like a fellow content creator would probably be easier because it feels like less like
Mm,
weird, less like power involved. Maybe.
yeah.
It's still a concept I'm trying. That's hard to understand. But if they came to me, it feels less bad. But still, it it's cool because I'm seeing that people are this is helping me locally that there are candidates coming to me saying hey can I come on your show,
Yeah.
hey I'm running for state council, can I come on your show and fundraise, hey can I do this, hey can I do that, people locally following me and seeing my Twitter blow up and be like whoa this is weird, I'm more well known than most Maryland politicians, which is a weird thing to wrap my head around.
How do
That
you how do you keep your ego in check, right?
what
Like,
ego? I don't know what you're talking
because,
about.
like, I feel like I'm going through that. Like, I did the Vosh interview the other day, and I'm still, like, going through every single comment. And whenever I see a nice comment, I'm like, oh, that feels so nice. Thank you. And it's breaking the exact advice I got from Vosh to not care and to not get your sense of validation from other people, right? But it's like, it's
Mhm.
so hard to actually do that. So how do you go about doing that?
I do have a somewhat of an ego, but I think again, I say this honestly, and I'm being honest because other people say, no, I don't have any ego. If you believe that other people should spend their time listening to you speak on the internet
Yeah.
instead of spending time with their families doing other stuff, you have to have some sort of an ego. If you think that your words are so important, people need to take time out of their day and listen to you. If you think that your time is you're so big or so whatever that you can actually like you should be the person in power controlling where the roads are built, where the street lamps are put, where and making sure that the toilet paper arrives on time, right?
Yeah.
So for everybody to buy, you have to have a certain amount of an ego. You got to, of course, keep it in check because egos don't get dangerous because of like, oh, they rub you the wrong way. Like, who at the end of the day, like that's unpleasant, but who cares? Is when
Mm.
the problem with egos is when it limits you by you overestimating yourself and thinking you're invincible. That's when egos
Mm-hmm.
get dangerous.
Yeah. That's actually that. I don't know. I don't know how you're 20 years old. It's making me feel bad about myself.
It's
I'm like
okay.
10 years
I
older, and
hear
I'm
that
like,
a
what?
lot.
How are you so like?
I hear that a lot, but this is what I say in response. And I've done most of this in the last 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning all of everybody else could do it. Everybody, well, not everybody else, obviously, but like everybody else could do a lot of stuff in their life with a very short amount of time. Like while you're doing it, it feels like forever. Afterwards, you look back, it's been 3, 4 years, and you could do so much in that period of time. And so when people are like, wow, you're so young, you've done so much. What about me? I'm like, you're 30, you're 22, you're 27.
Yeah.
You've got so much life ahead of you. You can do so much if you put your mind to it.
I'm writing this shit down. Thank you, Tyler. I need to remind myself. So a lot of people in general have kind of. I might be totally wrong about this, but it's just my perception.
Can I
Because
go use the bathroom quick?
no, you're not allowed. I'm
Okay, got
kidding.
it.
Okay,
Next
go.
question.
Okay, go.
Okay, I'll be right back.
I'll talk to your chat.
Talk to my chat. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna take advantage of this power. No, force him to stay. I feel like that would be really fucked up. Can you ask how he got into political? Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to get into political activism. Don't you worry. I will get into that. I love the attitude. I'm 25 and I'm probably going to do a career change once I finish my master's. Yeah. You know, like, honestly, my mom is one of my biggest, like, inspirations. And she's changed so much. Like, she's in her, like, mid to late 60s. And she's still, like, learning and changing and growing. And getting active online and stuff. Like, that shit never has to stop. Whoa, that was fast. It's good. Good having a dick. Makes things easier. You were
What?
so fast.
What?
That's such a weird thing for you to
Just
go.
came back as a good having a dick. I was like, okay.
I'm sorry. I was just like,
washed my hands. Okay. I'm sorry that I'm quick with it.
I was like, you were so quick. Like, it took
Yeah, I
forever.
mean, this is one of the few advantages we got. Okay, look, we got quick bathroom, right? We got quick bathroom time.
Yeah.
Women have, the first off the Titanic. So I think that's fair.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm sure. What a trade.
It's a good trade.
So something that I wanted to get into before you rudely, didn't listen to my instructions and went to the bathroom, is I've noticed that I'm kind of a Twitch outsider. I'm brand new, and it feels like you're kind of being pitted against Prime Ks, right? In terms of like both of your panels. I especially see this on like the Destiny subreddit, where everyone's like comparing you guys all the time, right? And like, does that frustrate you, or do you think
Destiny's community? Sorry, but Destiny's
yeah,
community, they give Prime way too much of a hard time in compare. Like, oh
yeah,
my gosh, they really. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Just continue. This is something I've seen a lot of. Is like, holy smokes.
yeah,
Continue.
no,
Just continue with the question.
they definitely do, and they're always like pitting you guys against one another, right? Even though, as you mentioned, you guys do very, very different things. They're both panels, but has that like does that sense of being pitted against someone, is that frustrating, or do you think that just makes you work harder and feel like that competition?
I love competition. If I love being able, because everybody this I always, if I see anybody else doing better than me, it makes me want to do that. And you know what? That is somewhat toxic, but it's also a huge motivator to me.
Yeah.
Anytime I see somebody like hitting numbers better than me, it's like I got to do better. I got to go harder. I got to go better. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm at where I am right now with on Twitch, is because I always want to innovate. And the thing is, like, I have respect for Prime, right?
Yeah.
Like Prime, he organizes 5 to 6 panels a week on top of then also doing the open stuff,
Hmm.
right? Which and he has tried to innovate with his like Prime Royale, which is kind of a copy of the old Raj Royale, which
Yeah.
left, and he took advantage of that market. I innovated in different ways. I am a lot more harsh with when it comes to moderation.
Hmm.
I of course did the Hippy Dippy Championship. I had the Rumble, which a lot of people thought was going to be like the Raj Royale, but was a lot different with its format and how people entered at different times, so we weren't always overbearing with 15 people. We play to different audiences, but we also have different comparison. And so the thing is, at the end of the day, from all the comparisons I've seen, I see it seems that I'm being compared in a favorable light, so I have no problem.
Well, I appreciate the honesty there. And you've
But I do,
also,
I do think they go a little too harsh on the guy, though. I do think so.
oh yeah,
They
he's
go
also, he's a
harsh.
really nice guy behind the scenes, right?
Oh,
Too.
he's
So
really nice.
yeah,
He's been nothing but nice to me.
yeah, really, really chill
I
guy
mean,
behind the
the
scenes.
thing is, I was one of the first like major channels to rate him. I was one of the. I'm actually have a
Oh, I
founder's
didn't know
badge.
that.
I have a founder's badge in his community.
Do you really? That's actually
I
really cool.
rated with the Hippy Dippy into his show.
I did not know that.
And I did it like a few weeks in a row, and a lot of my people liking panel content, I was sending the panel viewers over, and he gained them, and that's why to this day, his and my community have some of the most overlap.
Well, that's the weird irony in all this, because I'm guessing you're the same with me in this. Like, on one hand, you're competitive, you want to be the best,
Yeah,
you're always driving that.
I'm
But
like the U.S. Funding the Mujahideen. It's
yeah,
never gonna go wrong, you know.
like, so on one hand, you want to like destroy your competitors, but on the other hand, you want competitors, right? Because you recognize that's what motivates you. And it also increases, like, the higher quality your competitors are, right? Or the better your competitors are doing, the better you're going to push yourself to be. So it's like this weird juxtaposition.
Yeah, yeah. I will say I would say the entrance of John Burke's panels being at the same exact time as mine made me
Hmm.
really pick up exactly how I'm gonna do. And so for the first few weeks, I actually went on to his show, so I could like build my thing as where I went on a show and acted like this elitist coastal liberal and like got this heat
I
and
love
then
it.
used that heat to bring over, because I remember Gorgeous George, one of the most like famous original like best heels in the wrestling business, once told Muhammad Ali, which Muhammad Ali used. He said people pay 10 times more to watch somebody they hate lose than somebody they like win, and that 100% dragged people over. That the mentality. And after doing that, after using those few days to organize a bunch of great panels, I then just hit banger after banger after banger after banger panel
Yeah.
out. And it really grew my community. Like just 2 months ago, I was like 100 viewer average, and now I'm like 500 viewer average in like 2 months. And this
Yeah.
was the
You've
goal
grown
for
like
like,
crazy.
yeah, this I'm hitting all my goals way ahead of schedule. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be hitting the numbers I'm hitting now like in August,
Yeah.
and it's April. I had a whole schedule for the start of the year. So by the end of this year, I want to be a 1K Andy minimum. That's my bare minimum to know I've done well this year. I want to do even more than that. I want to see if I can
Yeah.
get
No, I bet you'll do
further.
even more than that, honestly.
I want to hit fucking 2K. I want to just keep going. I just want to keep growing. I love this. I love this platform so much. I want to just keep growing on it. I want to keep growing on the YouTube. I want to start bringing more people in, getting more bigger guests on. There's so much I want to do.
But there's
So
also
the
like
competition helps so much. I love it.
there's so much stress though that goes along with it, right? And like this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to do content that's more like interview focused and everything, because like the panels seem particularly stressful, and then
Yep.
on top of that,
Not to mention the
you're gonna
backlash.
yeah, and then on top of that, you're going to be facing constant criticism, some probably legitimate, a lot of it illegitimate.
Yep.
So how do you separate
You know
like
about that, don't you?
yeah. Yeah,
Oh
we'll be
goodness.
getting into that one. Yeah, so like how do you separate the legitimate criticism versus like people just concerned trolling
Um,
or being jealous?
I'll listen to it, and if I somewhat agree with it, that's one way for me to like tell if it's good, and I also like to see where people are coming through and how they're talking to me about it. If someone's
Mm,
bringing, because somebody can, and I think this is something that people need to accept. You can have a criticism of my show, and I could just disagree with it. That could
yeah,
be a thing. Like if you, for example, Gish Galloping, real issue. We're trying to see if we can implement timers into the show to make sure that no one person is completely dominating the show.
yeah,
But that's also could be with the sacrifice of if like Destiny and Vosh are on a show, does that mean we make it so like the people that people didn't really come as much to see like get as equal speaking time as these huge stars who are going to clash in the ring? Doesn't really make sense from an entertainment value. That feels more like an Oxford kind of political move, like an Oxford debate setting, less of a what we're trying to build here on Twitch. So we got to balance it a little bit. Like the Gish Galloping thing Demon Mama brought up to me, 100% accurate.
yeah,
A lot of the stuff that was brought up to me recently by No Comment Chick, I that that felt I felt like it was more from an area of less being good faith, and I think a lot of it has to come with how people talk to me, how people treat me, and where I think that's coming from, like conflicting interests. So
let's get
but
into that
I think
situation.
some people need to just be able to realize that you can have a criticism of my show, and I can just
Yeah,
disagree with it. Like if your criticism of my show is me platforming right wingers, you got to go somewhere else. I'm sorry.
yeah, like because it's not like you haven't considered the negatives, right? You've considered the negatives,
Yeah.
you've weighed it with the positives, and you've just made a decision. And sometimes that just needs to be respected.
There's a lot of work and effort that goes into this. People don't know this. We have secret lists of all the people who have been or we want on our shows,
Oh
and
no,
one of the
lists.
you have a list. We have the list, and on that list we have a spiciness meter, and we use that to help balance out shows. There's
I
like
love
a
it.
complicated math that goes
Yeah.
into this show.
Mhm.
Eris, of course, you would be in the low green area if we had you on the list.
Oh, what does that mean? What is
That
that
means you're
like?
chill as a cucumber,
Yeah, so I'm not spicy.
not spicy. I'm sorry, Eris.
That's why I've struggled. Like I
Unless
initially kind
unless
of
the topic's Israel or something, then everybody else their spiciness meters goes up.
yeah. Well, I've kind of struggled initially. I was going on panels, and I just like I didn't know what to do because I felt like in order to speak, I'd be like kind of destroying. I would be acting like someone that's not me, right?
Yeah.
And also kind of destroying my own integrity with the things that I value about myself. So it just that's why I'm so glad I found like this interview kind of niche. I didn't even realize that this was going to be like my thing. It's just
Does this mean when
yeah,
like when I have a scandal, instead of me going to CNN, I can just come to you?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful.
You know, I want to be the Oprah. Like I'm making an emote right now that's like the like an Oprah version of me. The Oprah
That's
of
great.
Twitch. It's the goal.
Wait, when you say you're making an Oprah version of you, let's be specific about what exactly you're
Okay,
doing. Like you're
it's not blackface. That's it.
okay,
I
okay.
just want
Just wanted
to
to
say that out there. I just feel like one of like the memes that she's put out. Like we'll do something kind of similar. Um, but in general,
yeah.
I feel like there's a huge problem with toxicity and negativity in general, like on Twitch. And you know, I don't know. I feel like that needs to be sometimes counterbalanced, right? Because sometimes
100%.
yeah. It's one of the reasons why I didn't want to compete with you because I thought like sometimes people want different things at different times. And yeah, just seemed like a losing battle. Um,
Hey, I appreciate you building the schedule around me. I hope more streamers do it in the future.
yeah, they should all learn from me. Um, in terms of, let's get into the whole thing with No Comment Chick, right? Because I
Sure.
was like accidentally involved in it.
Hmm.
And I was talking with Demon Mama last night. We're both like accidentally involved in this whole shit. We're like, no, I'm out of here. Like this is not fun. So I got invited to a panel to be on No Comments Chicks. I think it was Monday, right? Um,
Yep.
yeah, to be on her panel, and it was about platforming. I assumed I'd had kind of like a big talk about platforming with Dusty and Vosh, and I've dealt with this struggle and had my own journey with learning about responsible platforming. So I assume maybe that was me being egotistical, but I assume that's why I was being invited on there. And I mean, I've hung out in No Comments Chick. I think she's a really entertaining streamer. Um, and so I got invited. I show up, because I'm one of the ones that are actually punctual, right?
Yep.
And I show up, and then you were there, and I was like, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, wow,
Wait,
Dylan's a really big.
you were surprised.
Yeah, no, I did not know you were going to
So
be there.
so you had no clue that any of the topics had to do with my show.
No. N-
She basically told me beforehand that I was going to have allies on the show, like with you and others who were going to agree with my side of the thing, and
Maybe she just took a guess that that was the attitude I was going to take.
It
But
seems that
yeah,
way.
I did not know you were going to be there. I mean, not saying that I wouldn't have been on there. I would have probably, if I thought that you were going to be on there, I probably would have prepped differently. But I just assumed, I think she told me that, what was his name? I think Jordan or something. I forget the guy, like with the, he's like a
KF
king,
Logan.
PFP. Yeah, him. Like he was going to be on there. I knew he was going to be there in Merrick. But from my understanding, I did not know that you were going to be there. And because you're a really big streamer, I assumed that if she was going to mention anyone, like she would have mentioned you, right? Because that's usually like a cloud thing. Like, don't worry, this person will be there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I was pleasantly surprised at the beginning, and then as it started to go on, I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like this doesn't feel like what I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it was going to be like a panel talk where we were all just going to be chatting about our experiences with platforming, our ideas about it, maybe having discussions or debates about it. And it felt like there was this thing between you two, and I wasn't supposed to be there, right? And I felt like super awkward, right? Did you feel like it was like an ambush?
I didn't call it an ambush. She has said I've called it an ambush. I didn't call it
Mm-hmm.
an ambush. Other people called it an ambush. The thing is, so she watched my Hippy Dippy championship match with Demon Mama, Rob Noor, Vosh, and John Burke, and she did not like how it went. She was
Mm-hmm.
not happy with it, and during that, she talked about how a few times in that panel, let me give a background to it. During that panel, I referred to Demon Mama using the word they and also demon. I also refer to Demon Mama as she and her. And
Interesting.
Demon Mama uh, goes by she, her pronouns.
Yeah.
Now, I, at the time, thought that Demon Mama was fine with being called they and demon.
Yeah.
And later, after I asked her, she said, "Oh, it's fine if I call her that." Basically, she said it was
Yeah.
okay if I called her that. But for certain other people, when they use it, she views it as they're using it as an out to not use she and her because they don't view her as a woman.
Oh.
And so that's her problem with it. But me being her friend, and I use all pronouns because I use they and their and them to refer to basically everybody, right? Like
Yeah.
when I talk about Rob Norm, I'm going to
That's
say
what I do
they,
too.
they have this position, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's just like it's been like deeply dug into my language, right?
Yeah.
So that was one problem that No Comment Chick had with it. No Comment Chick also used this moment, which she has denied this since then. But all of her VODs are also subscriber locked. But I saw her do it live, and people can take my word at this. They can bank my credibility on it. That she and her chat were speculating about my ex's pronouns because my ex happens to be trans, and I
Mm-hmm.
use the word she to refer to them, but they're also non-binary. The thing is, they were speculating about it, and I know that along those times, like maybe we shouldn't be speculating about it, but then continue to speculate about it. And the thing is, my ex, even though this is nobody's business, they go by all pronouns, right?
Yeah.
And so since then, there was also speculation in her community about my ex's pronouns. That is something that angers me a lot because that's my
That's like
private
your personal
business.
shit,
That's my
right? Like,
personal stuff.
yeah.
That's nobody's business, and most certainly you're not going to use that to try to get dunkaroos on a political point. And lastly, it was basically like this idea that I was irresponsibly platforming Rob and that I was making the trans members in my communities feel a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my response to that is that I understand that having these conversations is extremely difficult. And I don't want to force anybody into a situation they're uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
This is why I space out conversations. For example, as somebody who's a survivor of rape, I'm not going to have a topic as serious as rape and sexual assault every single panel show.
Yeah.
Like if I have a topic about rape, it'll be once a month at most, maybe. And we're not having topics about rape like that or sexual assault or something like that. So
Yeah.
my biggest mistake I would say about that panel was probably having the what happened with Tyler Bluntman when with the misgendering the week before on the Rumble,
Mm-hmm.
and then having a topic about trans issues. But also Rob Noor, I mean Avash, Diva Mama are uniquely positioned to deal with transphobia and trans issues. They're very, very, very good at it. And with the
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas bill just having been passed the veto, like the veto was overruled, it was a topic that I asked other trans people in my community. I asked my trans friends, and they advised me that it would be a good show to do. Um, I was worried about it,
So you
but
tried to be as responsible as you
I,
could.
I tried my best. And so that's the show that ended up happening. And in that show, that's the show that occurred. We've all. I hope everybody's seen it. And so,
It was really
I,
fun.
yeah. So the panel, she called me out, no comment chick, on
Yeah.
Twitter and all this other stuff, and she says afterwards that it was wrestling. The thing is, people know that my show is very performative.
Yeah.
People know I wear a robe, I have the belt, I have the thing. It's pretty, it's like implicit, and I call it performative. I'm open about its performativity,
Yeah.
and the call out and all that. I could assume that was performative, but a lot of it, but I wasn't like given like a hint anywhere that this was going to be like a performative thing that ended up happening. But
Yeah.
then she finds out about, like, recently my father's been in chemo, and
Hmm.
my breakup, because the ex thing that just happened. I just broke up. That's a very
Yeah.
recent thing, which is also why I really didn't like that. So the
Yes, it's
ex thing
already a
happened.
soft spot for you.
So
Yeah.
she hears about this, like, you don't need to come on. It's like, don't worry, I'll come on. And because also she said that you and others who she said agreed with me would be on. So I'm like, oh, so it's not just going to be me in the firing line. It's going to
Hmm.
be me with all these other people who agree with me. And so I know that I don't have to just stand there just like defending my position right now when I'm not exactly in the best headspace for it. But so this actually feels like something I could do. So I go on the show, and I go in there, and the first two topics are Mel and the other thing, and we go through that.
It felt
And
like it was
then
all just about attacking you. That's how it felt to me.
the Mel and the first topics, like, I didn't feel like it was attacking me. It felt like it was the last topic that like felt like it was aimed at me, but I didn't really care that much.
Hmm.
But then people left, right? And
Yeah.
I understand that people naturally leave and stuff, and I stayed understanding that people naturally leaved, but I was also there under the impression that these people would be there. I could have left at any time, but I didn't, because I know how difficult it is to organize these shows and have people leave. And so I stayed, and eventually you left, and it was just me and Irene made a lot of points towards me, the vast majority of which I think
Hmm.
were not really great points. Other people can have different interpretations, but I think either they were not good points. She was either reading just random comments for chat about people that weren't even involved, and like something about Tom. It didn't make any sense. Or the few points she did make, I think I hit out of the park when it came to like Gish galloping. It's like,
Yeah.
Gish galloping is an issue, and I do acknowledge it's an issue. But let's also think about how Vosh and Dimamama dealt with it, and let's actually pull our chats to see how they think they dealt with it, and da da da. Oh, seems like
Yeah.
chat thinks it did really well. Then I think I hit him out of the park. And there was one question about the Nazbol vortex, that the Nazbol vortex isn't like a real word. It's something Vosh, like a word that Vosh made up for a real
Yeah.
world thing. Number one, I don't have Nazbols on my show, so I don't think it really applies in that format. I think the alt-right pipeline would maybe be something more you could possibly apply to my show. And I'm trying to be careful about like not having alt-righters. I've been given a
Yeah.
lot of opportunities to have really divisive alt-right figures on my show, and I've
Yeah.
not taken it.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was that moment where, and I was like, when she brought this term up, and this is the last piece of context I'll give, brought this random term up. I was like, I don't know what Nazbo vortex means, because it's not like an Oxford Dictionary word. It's
Yeah.
something Vosh made up. It's an internet thing. This is some terminally online
Yeah. I,
terminology.
I I don't know what it means.
So this is what ended up happening. At the end of it, after all those points were made, and I was sitting there, and you could see I looked pretty awkward, right? At
Yeah.
that, you could see I was kind of
The whole
uncomfortable.
situation was very awkward.
And somebody, Demon Mama, used the word cringe, which Irene really didn't like. And
Yeah.
so I was just there. I was playing Breath of the Wild, trying to answer these questions. And at the end of it, I basically just said, like, can I be honest? And she said, be blunt. I was like, okay. Honestly, I after this, like, I don't feel like this has convinced me to change any of my platforming. In fact, I feel more confident in my platforming than ever,
Yeah.
because if I just stood through like a 3-hour panel where I was supposed to like face like some criticisms about it, and I walk away like feeling like there wasn't like any really like legitimate criticisms I hadn't already talked about, and I said at the end of it, I even prefaced it, except for the few things like gish galloping, which I've said beforehand, I think there needs to be some work done, like nothing new.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, I thought she disconnected from the call. And I was like,
Ah.
Irene, Irene, okay. And I just went back to playing Breath of the Wild. What actually happened was that she muted and deafened me, put my camera up on the stream,
What the heck?
and then just basically was like, you've wasted my time, Dylan. I bring you on my show to do all this. This is how trans people in your community feel, da 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 da, and just basically shit talking me. Which she's after the fact that this is wrestling and it's what it is. Like, I that didn't feel like wrestling to me. right?
Yeah.
There was no warning beforehand. This was going to be like super performative stuff. That seemed like you venting because you failed to make a substantive criticism, and now
Mm-hmm.
you needed to like morally grandstand a little bit in front of your audience because you couldn't make a substantive criticism. So after that happens, I just finished stream, and then I hear that me and Irene had a falling out. I'm like, that's inaccurate. Falling out. I just disagreed with Irene. That's
Yeah.
all. But then I watch it on Demon Mama's thing because Demon Mama's reacting to it. Because part of the criticism that she had was like around Demon Mama's pronouns and saying that like I was talking to Demon Mama and using the wrong pronouns, but again, Demon Mama told me like I could use these words to refer to her. She's in control of her own pronouns. Demon
Yeah.
Mama is in charge of her pronouns. No comment chick isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care what no comment chick says about Demon Mama's pronouns. I will refer to Demon Mama how Demon Mama wants me to refer to her. Period.
Yeah.
So I watch it back and I see this for the first time. I'm like, oh my God, I had no clue she did that. And so I come on and basically say, like, this is bizarre. Like, this is really terrible.
Did you feel like
And
betrayed? Like,
I didn't feel betrayed. I just felt like extremely like disrespected.
yeah.
And like Demon Mama basically agreed with my assessment. And by the way, Irene wanted Demon Mama to react to it. She asked Demon Mama to react to this. She was
Mm-hmm.
trying. This was basically her using this last second, drop the elbow, and then giving it to other people to react to it to try to start up this little like drama storm, right? But then Demon Mama, like thinking Demon Mama would react to this and be like, "Oh wow, I can't believe Dylan and all this," but that didn't happen. And so Irene got really, really angry and started saying like some really off the wall stuff. I mean, like when
Yeah.
it's like, I wonder if Twitch is going to do anything about Dylan. Dylan's a piece of shit. He's a snake. The line, he's
That escalated.
dishonest. He's all that, like just like really dug into me, and then denied what I brought up in chat. And I went up in chat like to actually like maybe like see if I could like actually repair a bond quick. And what, because I was going in the chat and people in her chat was still speculating about my ex's pronouns, and I'm like, hey, don't do that. She wouldn't even admit to that. But then she brings up an instance from months ago, which I think I actually have the clip on it. If you really wanted to see it, I could send it to you. But I can actually just tell you what happened
Mm-hmm.
on a show 2 months ago. And she brought this out of nowhere to try to kneecap me from 2 months ago. Where 2 months ago, we were on a stream where while on her stream, we know it was my stream, it was Hippy Dippy. I said, in reference to her, and her pronouns are she, her. Let me be very clear, but I got to retell the history, so I got to say it how it is.
Yeah.
I got to say it how like it happened. I said, okay, it's no comment chicks time. It's time for their ending statement because I do the opening and
Mm-hmm.
ending statements, which are really good for formats. I would advise anybody who do panels to do ending and opening statements.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, it's she, her. And I think in my head, oh, she thinks I said him. So I said, excuse me, I said they, them. I used they. I
Yeah.
said there. And she said, yeah, I understand. Don't worry. Like, it's not an issue. People make the mistake. It's she, her. And I said, oh, okay. And that was the moment. That was the experience from the Hippy Dippy. And she was using that 2 months later to say that I was trying to tell her what her pronouns could be. And
Yeah.
just using this moment out of nowhere, like cynically against me, because now she thought she was defending Demon Mama, but Demon Mama actually didn't agree with it. And
So in
Demon Mama's
reality, she'd had this issue for a long time that she never
and
been
she
open
never
about it.
brought it up. Like it was just a
Yeah.
miscommunication. I thought that it was he, him, and I also used they, there, and like everything. I see it as like, you know, it's a gender neutral word. I just use it for anybody. Like and if I'll use it by default, but if somebody tells me like don't use they, them in reference to me, okay, I won't do it. Or
Yeah.
I try my absolute best. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I slip up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just who I am. But this felt extremely cynical, and blocked me on Twitter, like banned me in her chat, and she just basically like started banning all my fans from her
What?
community. And then after that, like
How did this just go nuclear? Like
I
I
what
thought it
I've
was
been
awkward,
told,
but
so
this
what I've
seems
been
insane.
told by people, and also there's been like I know at least one mod has walked away from her community saying like you're just bullying Dylan at this point.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, it feels like somebody who didn't get the like WrestleMania moment they were looking for, where they were going to dunk on me, didn't make any like
Mm-hmm.
really big criticisms, and so is now just projecting and getting really angry and throwing as much at me as possible to like make up for it. And but I also know that this is 100% also just, and I'm being cynical about it,
Yeah.
but just like she wants the drama farm, she wants attention, and a little bit by me talking
Hmm.
about it, it's me giving her attention. But I said I would answer all the questions honestly.
Yeah.
And at least one mod has walked away from her community because it's like you're bullying Dylan. And to me, what this is that she wanted to control how somebody else, another trans person, was addressed, was not happy with it, was not happy that I run my show differently than how she would want, brought the criticism to me. I came on her show and listened to those criticisms. At the end of it, said, I honestly don't think a lot. I'm being honest with you. I could have sweet talked and said, you brought up a lot of good points. I didn't. I said, let me be honest. I like, this isn't going to change. Like, I don't feel like you've moved me at all, and just lashed out hardcore. Just
Yeah.
lashed out hardcore. And at the end of, and the thing that gets me the most is in the thing on Demon Mama's thing, I said, I don't want to cancel Irene. And then she reacted, was like, oh no, you're 100% doing it. And trust me, I can go a lot harder than you. You mess with me, you're going to get like some bad results. You're going to get a bad response. Like basically saying like, look out, to both me and
Mm.
Demon Mama. So this is 100% her using this moment to be extremely cynical, get attention. She is just using this to get attention and bludgeon my show. And even though she's doing all this while knowing what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And so to me, this is just like absolutely like terrible conduct. Like there's no, honestly, it would take so much to rebuild that bridge. I don't think she wants to rebuild that bridge. I think she just wants attention. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, when she was beforehand, she was doing 30 viewers average. But when she was yelling about how evil I was, 120 viewer average. Half of them, of course, was my community just in there, just scratching their heads like, what the hell is going on? And so from my perspective, like, I just think she's terribly bad faith. I just think this is terrible. Like, I don't know. Now am I canceling Irene? I mean, I don't want to, but the more she like does this, like what am I doing now? Is this canceling by me just being honest about what happened on my platform?
Yeah.
I don't know. So from my perspective, it's just
It's tough
I don't know.
because I can see
I don't know.
I can see why. I feel like a lot of this, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so I feel I'm not qualified to be speaking like at this level. But if I were to guess, right, just because I guess I know people,
And wait,
right?
let me ask you one more time
Yeah.
to clarify, because I had no clue you didn't know this. You
Yeah.
had no clue that one of the topics was just going to be me.
No, not at all. I
Okay.
literally thought it, if anything, I
Okay.
thought it was going to be about like the whole list thing with platforming that I did with Vosh and Destiny.
Got it.
Yeah, because I was not prepared for that at all. That's actually why, if I don't know why the other panelists left, but I'm going to take a wild guess that it has to do with that because that wasn't what people signed up for, right? It kind of felt like everyone was there as like a prop. And in reality, she just wanted to talk to, the bigger streamer that was in that environment. So it actually, there was a part of me that felt like it was disrespectful to everyone else as well. Yeah, so I don't think that's probably why a lot of people left if I were to take a wild guess.
Yeah, everybody ended up leaving, which
Yeah,
I mean,
because
I
we
don't
were
I don't
never
blame them. Who
addressed.
would want to be? Who would want to? I mean, the thing is, the thing is, if you all did not know that was one of the things, then of course you'd leave. I wouldn't sign up for a panel to just talk about somebody else if I didn't know
Yeah,
beforehand or didn't have some like comments or criticisms or something I wanted to say about it.
yeah,
So yeah, it makes complete sense. And of course, what this is going to be, I mean, sadly, it's going to be more fuel to the fire. She's going to use this as more React content. Of course, her VODs are locked and subscriber locked. So like I can't go and like bring all this, because I remember when I like said you did this, she was just
mm,
denying it, and it was like, go get me proof. I'm like, I can't get proof. You need to subscribe. It's subscriber locked. And I remember one thing, it was like, Kate, one of her mods like was in there. Was like, hey, do you want to bring Dylan in to talk about this? And then she was like, Dylan has to pay me $200 to come in and talk about it. It's like,
what?
okay, cool. Just acting like a complete prick the whole time, and just yeah, no.
I
I
wonder.
this is like this made me very cynical about. And the thing is, this is gonna, and even if I don't want to do it intentionally, this is going to hurt my ability to take criticism going forward, because I'm going to see it all through like the cynical lens of, what is this, just another no comment chick? One second,
Yep.
my DoorDash order just came in. You just talk to my chat, okay? Be right back.
Sure. something that, like, I'll talk to the chat, I guess, a little. That whole situation, I actually really like Irene. Like, I don't know her personally, but I know her as a streamer. She's one of the few streamers I actually like watch on a regular basis, because I find her, like, she's just, to me, she's always like engaging. I find her really entertaining. I like her ideas, and she's unique. I love, that's like my favorite quality in people. Oh god, that food looks so delicious. Um, so it seems in general like the situation. I was just talking to your chat. Welcome back. The food looks really good, by the way. Um,
All you saw was a bag. Don't lie to me. All you saw was a bag. You can't say it looks good when it's a plastic bag.
no, because it's just, it's food, right? Like,
Man, just
it's
sweet
food.
talking me. Yeah, it's food. It's food.
Yeah, I haven't actually eaten it today, so
Uh,
I this is a
yeah, you
problem
don't
I've
have
been having. I like, because I'm just like you. I get like really intense at the grind, and just I've been like neglecting like my own personal needs, just to do like YouTube stuff and prep content, prep for interviews, all of that stuff.
Oh yeah,
So I
I do it
sometimes
all. I
forget to
do it all
eat.
the time.
Yeah,
It's just part of the grind. I just got to get better on a sleep schedule. Once the semester's over, I was gonna take summer classes on top of everything else.
yeah. That
I might skip it. I might just say nope. You know
yeah, I was
what?
like,
Screw
that's a
that.
bad idea. If you
Well,
do it,
if
all
I
the
take my
power to you.
summer classes, that means I get my undergraduate, and it's gonna make it like
Oh
the
yeah.
UMD a lot easier, cheaper too.
Oh, well, I guess like you'll have to weigh the sacrifice. But what I was saying was that I actually, I don't know Irene personally, but I've always enjoyed her content. Like, she's one of the few streamers I actually like do watch on a regular basis because I just find her really interesting and unique. That's like always my favorite quality in people. But that's why I agreed initially to do the panel, even though like I'm kind of a little, I guess, exhausted with talking about platforming.
Hmm.
But yeah, just because it's been there, done that for 3 years, and I'm exhausted with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I liked your content, so I agreed to it. The I wonder if like a lot of this, if it doesn't need to blow up more than this, right?
It really didn't. It
Yeah.
really did not. And I mean, maybe she thinks like I didn't have to go on Demon Mama show. Well, I don't think she had to do that thing where like brought my camera up and put it
Hmm.
there and all that stuff. And there, there's a lot of stuff like the fact that I went on the panel in the first place, even though I'm dealing with all this stuff, and knowing that she and her chat speculated about my ex's pronouns. That I was just trying to overlook it all. Just whatever. I'll just do the show. It's good content probably because
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to like talking with people you disagree is like I can put debate in the title,
Yeah.
and of course that's like good for that. And of course also I've been getting told by a lot of people I need to listen to criticism more,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it live in front of everybody, so I can't run away from it. Like on Twitter, if I just see a comment I don't like or can't respond to, or don't have the answer for, I can just turn off my phone, right? I can be
Yeah.
like, I just didn't see the tweet. I can't do that if it's live.
Yep. I just like, I wonder if this all is just like a symptom. And this is just like my experience with conflict resolution and stuff, running a Discord server because that's filled with conflict. Is like, I wonder if this is just all like a symptom of that initial thing that happened months ago, right? Where she felt misgendered. And I wonder if you're kind of filling like this villain role, or perhaps like being scapegoated for a real concern that she's had, where people kind of get away with like transphobia and all this stuff by saying they, instead, because
Yeah.
I've gotten pushback for the same thing. I have a habit, I mean, I already have social anxiety disorder, so I already struggle in general with like being terrified to mess up pronouns, and I hate the idea of hurting people, and so on top of that, English is already weird for me, like with pronouns, but then they just seems like the easy go to. I just thought like, for a while I thought, oh, I'm just gonna call everyone they, then I'm never gonna hurt anyone, and
Then they
this way
found your
it's
cheat
just.
code.
But then, yeah, but then it turns out, no, you can't do that, right? And I understand why you can't do that. So, like, I understand, like, why that can be hurtful because of that association. Um, so I just, like, wonder if this all just stems from that pain, from that moment, and you've kind of just accidentally been, like, the
The
scapegoat for that.
If I think it's that, but I've also been told by people who are like in our community, and this is me being cynical, that like
Yeah.
she like straight up said that she's trying to run the drama circuit. She just straight up said to like her mods that she's trying to run the drama circuit, which 100% I think is like part of it because even if you like, I do believe that there's 100% like dealing with transphobia can like build
Yeah.
up inside you, and you can like just want to throw it at something. But
Mm-hmm.
the amount it was thrown at me, and the just the fervent, just off the rails reaction, just out of just not performing well on like one panel, like whatever. Like I've been on a million panels that I haven't performed good on. It's is what it is.
Yeah.
There has to be like something else there, and I do think that could be part of it though, 100%. Which is why I'm not like completely like she is the worst person on the planet, and I'm gonna go on this quest and make Twitter threads or
Yeah.
whatever. The only reason I'm talking about it right now is because you brought it up. Really, I
Yeah.
was told by everybody else just don't talk about it, just ignore it because you're giving her what
Oh,
I
I
want. But
apologize to those people.
it's okay. It's
I
okay.
couldn't. To me, I just couldn't not bring it
Sorry,
up.
geek.
Right.
Love you.
Yeah. I couldn't not bring it up, even though, like, you, on one hand, you don't want to contribute. You know that this whole drama circle, you know it's bad. But on the other hand, there's a reason why people care about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And this stuff is always a sign into who you are as a person, your value systems, and human relationships, right? Like, so there are some good reasons why we care about this stuff, even though if we acknowledge it's toxic in
Yeah.
total.
The thing is, what this is less a drama and just one person just behaving terribly, just absolutely terribly towards another streamer. And now this is where she's gonna pause,
Yeah.
and then he's gonna unpause and thinking like, well, actually that was Dylan, so I caught you. I know your game, no comment check. Okay, I know how you do react content. Okay, we were chill. I watched your streams. I lurked. Okay, so but you lost my one view. I know it's a tragedy. Oh, and
Well,
then there was like this moment where I said, I can't pay the $200 to come on. I have like dental bills and stuff. Like
was
I,
that
I
like
have
a
stuff I gotta pay
serious,
for. And then
was
she
that a
just
serious
responded
comment?
like, oh, but you have that Switch. And I'm like, you think I'm rich? I was homeless a month ago.
Yeah. Wow.
It was
I,
like the actual oppression Olympics attempt. It was
yeah,
like who's
that's
the
why
most
this,
poor? Who gets the W on being poorer?
I almost
And
like,
then
I
she,
want to think that it comes from like a place of hurt and stuff. But yeah, with comments like that, I don't blame you for being upset and for being mad, especially when it got really personal. It didn't need to get that personal. It shouldn't have gotten that personal.
it didn't. And the thing that gets me is if she just wanted to run like a little like TV wrestling drama thing to get attention, she could have
Mhm.
just DM me, be like, "Hey, you want to start like a small fake like little drama, like get attention?" And I might even entertain the idea. Honestly, I like money. Who doesn't like money? I might entertain the idea.
We should plan something behind the scenes, Dylan.
100%, Eris. I understand that you don't show your face because you're the CEO of Raytheon, correct?
Um, well, you have long hair because you're actually really insecure. So fuck you. Yes, right?
That was too
Is this how we
personal,
do it?
Eris. You went too far.
Yeah, honestly, something that in general, people have had this, like, I ran CC, like, which is Calliope Club, my server. I
Hmm.
ran that for 3 years, and I got, not only did I get $0 from it, right, but it was like a financial loss leader, right? Like I was
Damn,
putting more
really? A
money, yeah,
Discord server was a
yeah.
financial loss for you?
Because like I was just constantly trying, because I'm just like you, I'm like competitive. I was always like looking at my competitors. I wanted to get more people in, more high quality stuff. Like sometimes I'd have to like pay for certain AMEs. Like I was really determined on this. And I really like believed in it like intensely. And the minute like I got into streaming to try to find a way for me to still keep CC free for everyone, and also find some kind of way to actually put food on my table because it was unsustainable what I was doing before. I got like so much hate. Like I got so much hate about it. So I don't know. Yeah, people shaming you about money stuff really sucks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it really sucks.
it is what it. Look, I'm just very blunt. Like I need to feed myself. This is how I feed myself. Please support me. By the way, chat, a lot of you probably have primes just like tucked away somewhere. Okay, you could throw out the channel right now. I'd appreciate it. Any tier ones, any any donos. Oh God, I'm
Um,
sorry. The poverty is making me choke. I'd appreciate any support.
don't choke. But if you don't want him to choke, please support me on my
Of
Patreon.
course.
Thank you.
The Patreon. I'm starting the Patreon soon for my YouTube. Are those lucrative? Are they good?
Yeah, they're way better because it's harder to get people to support you on Patreon, but once they do, almost all of the money goes to you, right? Whereas like
That is a
Twitch,
lot dope. Like they take half of it, which if I
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, if if I got all of what I was getting in subs, like I would be living like amazingly. But
No,
like
Twitch
really
takes
cutting it in
so
half
much
is
of it.
nuts. It's not at all comparable to anything YouTube does.
Yeah. No, like Patreon's actually really, really cool with that. So if you do want to support your favorite content creators, Patreon's often like
Yep.
the best. If anyone's watching, Patreon's like the best way to do it if you want like the least amount of money to go to, big corporate empires and all of that stuff. Yeah, if you need help
really
with the
soon.
Patreon, I can also help you out with that because it's way, way better.
Yeah, because when I do it, I'm also going to be able to do multiple daily uploads once I do the Patreon because I can pay my editor more.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. I've been like constantly like investing into my channel because I do that same shit, right? Like shooting for the moon, just trying to take myself like super seriously. But honestly, like it's been really nice just seeing that people are actually willing to pay for my labor. I was like, wow, that's so cool.
Hey Zonia, thanks for the 5 tier 1s as we go level 3 on this hype train. I appreciate it.
Oh, nice, you're getting a hype train. That's awesome.
That is
My
nice.
my
That's very
chat
nice
should
of
learn
them.
something.
I forgive them for being Twitch chatters.
Oh yeah. Well, let's I guess we can move away from the money talk, right?
Sure.
To political activism. My chat's like being like nonstop. Like this is the thing that people really love you about is your political activism. So, could you tell me a little bit about? Oh, nice! I just got a sub. Thank you, Dennis. Could you tell me a little bit about what pushed you to actually stop just complaining about politics and actually like do something about it?
Yeah, when my mom died was probably like the final straw for me. Like the thing
Wow,
is like
that's intense.
for me it's like everything I do is in somewhat relation to my mom with the heroin and the drugs and all that. It
Mm-hmm.
is somewhat related to that past because going through that, right? The last conversation I had with my mom was her scared she was going to lose her health insurance due to Trump.
Oh my god.
That was the last conversation I had with my mom before she died. And that is something that sticks with me. Like the last conversation I had with my mom is about how she
That
is
was what she
scared
was
she's going
worried
to lose her
about.
health insurance. That
Something
she was
that,
worried about. Instead
yeah.
of like spending time with her family, instead of anything else, instead of like having a like being happy or not suffering is my health insurance. It was around the time she was also homeless in DC. And so
Yeah.
I don't want anyone else to ever have to go through that. That's a terrible, 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 terrible feeling. And I think I just don't want other people to have to go through that ever. Everybody, I know, and I think this is something people can react to some extent because everybody wants their children and their children's children to do better than they did, and
Mm-hmm.
I just feel that way about just all the people in this country that are going through nonsense like that. I want people to have to do better. I know I can't fix everything, but if I leave this world just a little bit better than how I found it, then I'll be happy.
I don't know. I can't even imagine. Like anyone would be proud, right? So I can't even imagine what she would be thinking right now. Like of all the stuff that you've accomplished
A
at such a
Twitch
young age.
streamer, really?
No, my parents think like I try to explain it to them, and my parents think I'm like a cam girl. They're like, wait, so mostly people online like they send you money for what you're saying? I don't understand. Sounds like sex work to me.
Yeah, I'm a cam homo, right? I come on here with my rainbow necklace, and they're just like throw the money at the gay.
Yeah. So like if you were to advise, like if there are people who are watching
Yeah,
and
at
they want to
least he
stop.
isn't on D Live.
Oh. I'm getting a hype train. Thank you for that. My
Hey.
chat is competing.
It's pretty dope. I mean, we're
Yeah.
level 5, so you better hurry up, Eris.
God damn it, I'm only level 2.5. Yeah, you guys, you gotta step it up. So I bet you there's a ton of people who are watching, and because you've been critical of people who just like complain about politics and they're not actually doing anything about it, and that's
and let me be clear about
Yeah.
something. This is the honesty that I know. There's a lot of streamers who are like, and when I say I'm sick of these do nothing streamers who talk about it all the time, and they're like, hell yeah, Dylan, I agree. No, stop. I'm talking about you. You think I'm not talking about you. Motherfucker, I'm talking about you. You're sitting here like he doesn't mean me. No, I mean you. I mean you. I mean you. I don't mean the streamer you don't like. I don't mean the other person. I mean you. You do it. Look, there's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah.
One of the easiest things is if you live in a city, like a not too big city, check if you can just fill out a few forms to go on a local city board. And then if you're on a local city board, you can have a huge impact about the type of recommendations the city council gets and the type of legislation they end up seeing. And that can have a huge impact on the legislation that gets passed in your city. That, a lot of times, just takes paperwork, just takes filling it out. You can find that on your city website. Get in contact with your local city council members. Message them, email them, ask you how you can help people during COVID. See if there's any local city council members that you support that you might want to help during re-election. Get involved. Canvas. And I know canvassing doesn't feel like this huge thing, but use that. Write down the phone numbers you get while doing it. These are contacts that will be super helpful going forward. Make a good impression. People will want you back. People will put your name on a contact list and they will call you. They will get in contact with you. There are so many things you can do to get active in politics in your local scene. All you have to do is do it. You're thinking I'll do it tomorrow. You're thinking I'll do it the next day. Literally do it right now. Go Google your local city council website. Don't be a little nerd, okay? Go do it right now and just go see if you can fill out the paperwork to do that, or contact your local city council member. And if you don't have a city council member, try county.
I feel personally attacked. I feel very personally attacked. But honestly, you're right.
Local city board?
Honestly, literally, even in the last election, I didn't even vote. That was the first time I didn't vote. And I think one of the problems in general is I got so focused. Studying history, I get so focused and absorbed in the past that I forget to literally live in the present and care about that shit. So
you need to vote.
Yeah. No, I need to start giving a shit again. Honestly, yeah, you're totally right. That's why my anime character is very stressed.
Very stressed. You need to vote. You're going to vote next time, right?
Yeah. No, I am.
Going to vote? Say I pledge.
Okay, I pledge. I pledge
to vote in the next election.
Okay, I pledge to vote.
The next election.
Yeah, and then
I want everybody out there. One last thing. Democracy isn't a thing that's every 2 to 4 years. I know you're thinking democracy is when the ballot box comes around and put a little piece of paper in it every 2 years or every 4 years. No, that's not how democracy is. Democracy is 365 days a year, 24/7. You can do it through a lot of things. One of the best American writers in American history, Henry David Thoreau, wrote Civil Disobedience. There's a lot of different ways how you can act as a counter friction to the current forces that are perpetuating horrible inequalities in this country. You can do it through, of course, one of the most basic ways, if you want to be a basic individual, is getting signatures, doing the city board thing that I just recommended, practicing civil disobedience. Democracy isn't always pretty and sunshine. There's a lot of ways, protesting. There's a lot of ways you can get active, involved. Hell, lobbying government, actually getting involved in the shadowy lobbying stuff. There's a lot of stuff you can do. Joining progressive orgs. There's so many stuff you can do to actually get involved. And all of this also applies if you're conservative. Of course, I would love if you didn't do what I'm saying, but do it as well. Even the people disagree with.
Honestly, yeah, you're totally right. And I'm glad that you just I don't know. I'm glad you've got the balls to say it. I appreciate it. And I think I needed to hear it. In general, how do you suggest that someone, besides voting, right? That's the obvious, but if someone wants to get involved in local politics or just actually start doing something, what do you think should be the practical first step?
Practical first step should be contacting your city council members and asking them, because they probably know a lot more than you about that type of stuff. You could even be county council members. Maybe you won't get response from directly them, but you might get response from a person. Make sure it's somebody you somewhat trust, though. Another thing is looking at local city boards. Trying to look at city boards that interest you, stuff that you might, something that you might have an interest in. So you will have a better reason to fill out that form and want to fill out that form. You'll be more likely to attend meetings if you want to go to the meetings. They're sometimes boring, but very, very important. You'll be surprised what day is a voting day and one day isn't a voting day for getting legislation or recommendations to the council. Another thing you can do is just waiting for election season, trying to find out who you like, canvass with them, get close to them, talk to them, and build contacts that'll end up helping you out later. Start reading local newspapers and state level newspapers about what's going on. It could just be stuff online. If you look up Oklahoma State News, if you live in Oklahoma, you'll probably find some stuff. I live in Maryland, and I read a lot of Maryland Matters. So
Yeah.
there's a few things you can do.
Is there anything that you can do if you're not like, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are either like disabled or like have some kind of issue that they can't go outside, right? It's like a meme, but it's also like true for a lot of people. Is there anything that
They
someone
can't,
could do?
quote unquote, touch grass.
Yeah.
The phone banking is something you can do. Mailers
Oh,
is a
cool.
huge thing for mailers are so important for campaigns. That's another thing you can do. By the way, if you're disabled and you can probably still get on the city board. I'm doing city boards right now on Zoom call. They'll probably, now this isn't going to be true of all cities, but there might be some cities that'll have accommodations so you can
Hmm.
actually go to city meetings on Zoom. So you could still possibly get on the city board.
Oh, that's actually really cool. I didn't even know that.
It depends on the city, and of course with COVID, all of them are online. So you would just
Yeah,
have
I
to,
wonder how much COVID is also going to make, like, and the changes made for COVID is going to make, like, just politics more accessible for a lot of people because of
like
everything
if
going
I
online.
like if I have to go to a physical building to go on a city board, or you can do it from home, I think a lot more people will do it if you can just do it from home.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Honestly, Dylan, thank you so much, like, for being frank with me, for being honest, and just being willing to have like an interview. Like, I'm a way smaller content creator than you, so it was cool for you to just give me the time of day. And honestly, we spent most of this, I think, talking about your trauma and being a survivor. In, like, you're incredibly brave. Like, you're just
Thank you very much.
and honestly, anyone else who's in this chat, like, or who's listening, everyone knows, everyone's appreciative of you speaking for those of us who are not comfortable speaking. And I can't even begin to imagine where you're going to be, like, in 6 months or, 10 years from now. Like, I'm actually really excited to see, like, seeing your passionate stuff. It's literally inspirational.
Thank you very
And
much.
if you guys want to watch Dylan's content, I mean, if somehow you haven't, my mods are gonna link all of his info.
Twitch.tv/Hasanabi. I'm the guy. I'm the guy with
Yeah.
Dan Crenshaw 9/11. That's
Oh,
oopsie
yeah.
doopsie. Yeah, you can find me there.
And what times do you normally stream? For those who don't know.
6 p.m. EST to 12 p.m. EST.
Yeah,
Is my
and I do
usual
not
stream.
normally stream at those times. Okay, you do not have to pick one or the other. Right?
True.
I stream from 2 to 5 normally, and normally every day as well. And I usually focus on historical content, but twice a week I do these interviews where I talk to someone who I find super cool, like Dylan. Yeah,
Happy there's more history streamers. We need more. That's
Yeah.
an important part of the space.
yeah. You and I are both filling like kind of weird niches, so it's been cool to just get to finally talk. Because yeah, I've admired you behind the scenes for a long time, and so yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
so
so
much.
much.
No problem. You have a blessed one, okay?
You too. You too.